Chapter 368. Seeing this, Jianwang no longer had any fear. He was no longer afraid of death, and only wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. The moment this life-or-death tribulation appeared, the surrounding space began to tremble. The power of Emperor Qin Shi Huang had finally reached its limit. Even the calamity of life and death had been triggered. Is this the power of the calamity? Chu Fengmian looked at the black calamity clouds in the sky and thought inwardly. This was his first time seeing the power of the calamity. And now, this calamity was countless times more terrifying than Qin Huang's. At this moment, Qin Huang had drawn out the calamity's power. It was as if he wanted to perish together with Chu Fengmian. You want to perish together with me? Qin Huang, the only one who will die today is you. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered, and his figure suddenly rushed toward Qin Huang. He had to take advantage of the fact that the calamity of life and death had yet to fully manifest and kill Emperor Qin Huang. Otherwise, if Qin Huang joined hands with the calamity, Chu Fengmian would be in an extremely dangerous situation. Now, as long as he dealt with Qin Huang, this calamity would not be impossible for Chu Fengmian to resolve. Battle Dragon Claw. Chu Fengmian activated the power of 1,000 drops of ancient battle dragon's essence blood. They burst out at the same time, forming a battle dragon claw, which immediately pressed down on Qin Huang. Qin Huang had burned his essence blood to recover his current strength. However, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. If Chu Fengmian struck while the iron was hot, he would be able to kill Emperor Qin Huang once and for all. Once Chu Fengmian devoured Emperor Qin Huang's blood essence, he would be able to advance to the next level. You want to kill this emperor? Do you think it's that easy? Countless calamity lightning. Destroy everything. Qin Huang furiously roared, and condensed all the spiritual energy in his body into a huge thunderous hand. It soared into the sky and clashed with Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw. The power of this clash was enough to spread through the entire shattered space. This power was simply the strongest clash under the life and death realm. The claw of the battle dragon and the thunderous hand of Emperor Qin Huang were shattered into pieces. The strength of the two was actually on par with each other, and they both shattered at the same time. However, before this move could succeed, Chu Fengmian's expression was still as calm as ever. The power that came from the Qin Emperor's burning of his blood essence was already exhausted. With a thought, the broken battle dragon's claw was condensed directly. As long as the 1,000 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body were not completely taken away, he could use his spiritual energy to continuously condense the battle dragon's claw. Once again, he condensed the claws of the war dragon and attacked. However, this time around, the power of Emperor Qin Huang was not limited. The thunderbolts that he had gathered were shattered instantly. At the same time, his body was sent flying as he spat out a huge mouthful of essence blood. Of course, Chu Fengmian would not let go of such an opportunity. His body moved and immediately rushed in front of Qin Huang. At the same time, the Emperor Jar appeared again. The way of the human sovereign is to enlighten all living beings. All of Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy was instantly drained and condensed into the Emperor Jar. Instantly, an extremely powerful spiritual energy burst out from the jar of the human emperor and blasted toward Emperor Qin Shi Huang. The energy that burst out from the Emperor Jar seemed to have turned into thousands of sharp swords, piercing into Qin Huang's body one after another. Under the power of the Emperor Jar, Qin Huang's body started to crack layer by layer. Then, it directly shattered, and the flames on his body were extinguished. The Emperor of Qin Huang country, the great emperor of a generation, had his mind and soul destroyed under the power of the Emperor Jar. At the same time, the endless saint's blood essence was directly devoured by Chu Fengmian. It fused into Chu Fengmian's body. Immediately, Chu Fengmian felt that the power in his body was endless. This Qin Huang was a figure that was infinitely close to the life and death realm. If he had not met Chu Fengmian, he would have had a chance to cross the life and death calamity and enter the life and death realm. Now that Qin Huang had fallen, all of his saint's blood essence was taken by Chu Fengmian. This meant that Chu Fengmian had obtained close to half of Qin Huang's power. This power had all fused into Chu Fengmian's body, causing his body to feel like it was about to explode. The power of the battle dragon art was fully unleashed. Waves of spiritual energy were injected into the ancient battle dragon's shadow behind Chu Fengmian. Drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence were condensed once again. This spiritual energy unceasingly condensed ancient battle dragon's blood essence. Only when Chu Fengmian's power had reached the upper limit and bottleneck did it subside. A total of 296 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence were condensed. Adding the 1,000 drops in Chu Fengmian's body, he had exactly 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. The first layer of the battle dragon art had a total of 196 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. This represented the power of a true ancient battle dragon. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence, it meant that his current strength was 1% of a true ancient battle dragon's. How powerful was this power? An ancient battle dragon was enough to tear apart the 9 domains. In the current 9 domains, it was an absolute king. For Chu Fengmian to possess 1% of its power, it was already extremely powerful. At the very least, in the divine force realm, the current Chu Fengmian could be said to be invincible. No one could stop him. He was truly an invincible character in the divine force realm. No saints or demon gods would be able to fight against him. Life and death calamity? Then, let me experience how powerful this life and death calamity is. Chu Fengmian raised his head. The life and death calamity seemed to have noticed Chu Fengmian's aura. All of a sudden, a sky full of lightning descended. These bolts of lightning transformed into countless ferocious beasts. They were all formed by the calamity lightning. The power of this calamity lightning was several times stronger than the one condensed by Jianwang. Any one of these beasts was enough to cause trouble for some peak saints. Invincible battle dragon. Battle dragon claw. Chu Fengmian's mind moved. 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence burst out with the strongest power. The battle dragon claw was condensed in an instant. The scales and lines on it were clearly visible. The power contained in it was much more terrifying than before. The battle dragon claw swept across fiercely. The beasts that were formed by lightning were all shattered. Chapter 369. Every lightning beast here was no weaker than an ordinary pinnacle saint. They were comparable to Saint Jianwang. Although they were far from Emperor Jianwang's strength, they were enough to set off waves in the 6 nations. However, under Chu Fengmian's battle dragon's claw, countless lightning beasts were completely annihilated. This also meant that with Chu Fengmian's current strength, it was extremely easy for him to kill Saint Jianwang and the rest. He could easily kill them with a wave of his hand. Countless lightning beasts were destroyed by Chu Fengmian. The Great Tribulation seemed to be infuriated, and more tribulation lightning fell from the sky. This time around, the countless bolts of tribulation lightning turned into sharp swords that shot toward Chu Fengmian with murderous intent. Trying to show off your sword skills in front of me? Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. Holding the scarlet flame sword, he soared into the sky and rushed towards the countless lightning swords. Endless blood chi suddenly condensed. Massacre the human realm. Blood sea of the human realm. This sword was said to be the sword of the person who had created the massacre sword technique. With this sword, the human realm would be turned into a sea of blood. Although Chu Fengmian was far from being able to achieve this, the power of his sword strike was extremely shocking. When the sword strike was made, endless blood chi began to expand wildly. 10 feet. 100 feet. 1,000 feet. 100,000 feet. 100,000 feet. The blood chi condensed into a 100,000 feet long bloody scar. When the sword strike was made, it blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The tribulation clouds of the Great Tribulation seemed to be extremely small in front of the 100,000 feet long bloody scar. When the sword strike was made, the entire shattered space was filled with endless roars. The countless lightning swords condensed by the Great Tribulation were shattered and devoured by the 100,000 feet long bloody scar. However, the 100,000 feet long bloody scar did not stop. After devouring countless tribulation lightning, its power became much more terrifying. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's body was reinforced with endless sword intent on the 100,000 feet long bloody scar. The 100,000 feet long bloody scar immediately slashed towards the tribulation clouds of the Great Tribulation in the sky. What Chu Fengmian wanted to do now was not to resist the Great Tribulation. He wanted to do something even more terrifying. He wanted to destroy the tribulation. Completely destroy this life and death calamity. This was the tribulation of life and death that everyone was afraid of. Even a legendary figure like the Qin Shi Huang would have to go through thousands of years of preparation before he dared to overcome it. Now, Chu Fengmian wanted to destroy him. Not only was he going to overcome the tribulation, but he was also going to destroy it. This kind of behavior was crazy to the extreme. It was crazier than anything Chu Fengmian had done. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was filled with boundless confidence. His current strength was already invincible in the Saint Realm. How could this life and death tribulation threaten him? Now, Chu Fengmian was going to personally destroy this calamity. Boom! Rumble! The tribulation seemed to have been enraged by Chu Fengmian. Boundless tribulation lightning fell from the sky in an attempt to resist Chu Fengmian's bloody scar. However, the tribulation lightning was completely devoured by the enormous blood scar. The power of the tribulation couldn't shake Chu Fengmian's sword at all. Break for me. Chu Fengmian's gaze was resolute. It was as if an ancient supreme sword intent had been added to his body. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had made a move after his breakthrough. This time, he was going to destroy this calamity. Hiss! The enormous blood scar slammed into the tribulation, shattering the tribulation clouds in an instant. The tribulation still wanted to struggle, but Chu Fengmian could feel an endless stream of power descending from the sky, as if to teach him a lesson. The power of the heavenly tribulation was extremely strong. The tribulation of life and death was just the beginning. If there was a higher level of tribulation lightning, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to deal with it. However, this time, Chu Fengmian wasn't going to give the tribulation any chance. Abundant lush steel. The abundant lush steel appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand, and he struck out with his palm. The tribulation was instantly shattered by the power of the abundant lush steel. At the same time, a sparkling and translucent jade bead slowly fell from the center of the tribulation clouds. This is... Chu Fengmian looked at the jade bead, and his expression changed slightly. The spiritual energy within the jade bead was purer than anything he had ever seen. This jade bead came from the source of the tribulation. Even though Chu Fengmian had seen a lot in his past life, this was his first time seeing it. The fortune bead. This is the fortune bead. Chu Fengmian suddenly recalled a rumor. The fortune bead was one of all the treasures in the 9 zones. It was said that whoever refined the fortune bead would obtain the power of fortune, the true power of heaven and earth. The fortune bead had always been a rumor. Although there were records and descriptions in countless ancient books, Chu Fengmian had never seen it before. Looking at the jade bead in his hand, Chu Fengmian immediately understood what it was. This was the most mysterious treasure of all, the fortune bead. And this fortune bead was the core of the tribulation lightning. It was no wonder that although there were rumors about the fortune bead, few had seen it. It was the core of the tribulation lightning. Only people like Chu Fengmian, who had destroyed the tribulation lightning, could obtain it. The destruction of the tribulation lightning was absolutely crazy. In the records of the 9 zones, only 5 people had done it, and each of them was a legendary figure. Today, Chu Fengmian had coincidentally destroyed the tribulation of Emperor Qin Huang and obtained the fortune bead. This was truly a fortuitous encounter. Devour. Chu Fengmian made a prompt decision. Without hesitation, he swallowed the fortune bead. Chu Fengmian had heard about the various miracles of the fortune bead countless times in his past life. Now that he had finally obtained it, he swallowed it without hesitation. The fortune bead was the core of the tribulation. It was the purest spiritual energy. As soon as he swallowed it, it melted and turned into endless spiritual energy. This endless spiritual energy was not swallowed by Chu Fengmian. Instead, it all went to the divine veins in Chu Fengmian's body and turned into a ray of light. This ray of light is the power of fortune. Chu Fengmian looked at the ray of light and thought to himself. It was rumored that if one swallowed the fortune bead, they would obtain the power of fortune. Now that the spiritual energy of the fortune bead had merged into Chu Fengmian's body, it turned into a ray of light above the mountain. Chapter 370. The ray of light reached the divine pulse in Chu Fengmian's body and stopped peacefully. Surrounded by the ray of light, it's time to see how powerful the power of creation is. Chu Fengmian felt that the ray of light contained terrifying spiritual power. The power of creation. It was the most terrifying power in the world. There were very few experts in the 9 regions who could control the power of creation. Even Chu Fengmian's master, the master of Sword Dao, who was known as the most powerful expert of his time, could not control the power of creation. It was rumored that the experts who could control the power of creation were all mythical figures. Chu Fengmian did not expect that his opportunity this time would allow him to obtain the power of creation. Creation. Chu Fengmian's mind moved and began to activate the power of the ray of light. The ray of light was drawn out of Chu Fengmian's divine pulse and condensed on his fist wind. Suddenly, he threw a punch into the depths of the shattered void. Chu Fengmian even felt the power of the law of heaven and earth supporting him with this punch. The power of creation was the true power of the origin of heaven and earth. What Chu Fengmian was doing now was simply using the origin of heaven and earth to support his power. The power of this punch was several times stronger than the previous one. What a terrifying power of creation. Even though Chu Fengmian had expected this, he could not help but be shocked when he saw this scene. The power of creation was indeed a power that could only be obtained from the origin of heaven and earth. It was extremely terrifying. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had only obtained the first creation jade bead and turned into the first ray of light. According to the records, true experts could obtain more than one creation jade bead. It could be said that Chu Fengmian would be able to obtain another creation jade bead if he broke through the lightning tribulation in the future. This coincidence has given me a great gift. Chu Fengmian sighed in his heart. If he broke through again, he would probably attract a great tribulation. His strength was no different from a true peak saint. In terms of strength, Chu Fengmian could surpass any peak saint. If he broke through again and tried to break through to the divine power realm, he would probably attract a great tribulation of life and death. Chu Fengmian's great tribulation of life and death would probably be more terrifying than Emperor Qin Shi Huang's. After all, Chu Fengmian's talent was simply monstrous. If the heavens did not tolerate it, it would definitely send a terrifying tribulation of lightning to deal with Chu Fengmian. But now that Chu Fengmian had mastered the power of creation, even if the tribulation of life and death came, Chu Fengmian was confident that he could get through it. However, Chu Fengmian's current strength had already reached a bottleneck. It was the same as when Chu Fengmian was in the Wuxing Academy. If he rashly increased his strength, he would likely end up in a dragonized state. Chu Fengmian had already experienced the terror of dragonification once. He did not want to experience it a second time. Fengmian tribulation of heaven make a breakthrough tribulation of creation princess emperor to the emperor to princess emperor emperor. Although she killed the first prince, those old guys in the royal family of the Qin Empire will not let her go. Chu Fengmian was a man who kept his promises. Since he had chosen to ally with Princess Tianyin, he would not leave her alone. His figure moved and left the shattered space in an instant. The shattered space could no longer stop Chu Fengmian. His body flashed a few times and arrived at the imperial city of the Qin Empire. Chu Fengmian immediately sensed the aura of countless saints in the imperial city. There were more than 20 of them. It seemed that the appearance of Emperor Qin Shi Huang had startled the countless old men in the Qin Empire. Chu Fengmian sensed that there were as many as 5 pinnacle saints among them. But even if they were peak saints, Chu Fengmian could defeat them. He could even kill Emperor Qin Shi Huang, let alone these people. Chu Fengmian's body moved and flew towards the imperial city. He hid his body so that no one could see him. Within the royal city, Princess Tianyin was trapped within countless seals. Beside her, her greatest supporter, the Prince of Bloodkill, was also under a seal, unable to resist. Among the countless saints, the 5 old antiques who were at the pinnacle of the saint realm were discussing amongst themselves. That kid who suddenly appeared, where did he come from? He killed Grand Prince Taidu and the first prince. Although he is being pursued by His Majesty, his strength is indeed terrifying. Among the 5 peak saints, one of the old men, old ancestor Qin Mang of the Qin Empire, said slowly. His eyes were deep, and no one knew what he was thinking. If this person's strength can be used by our royal family, it will be a good thing. At least, he can be a sharp sword to deal with family Zhao. This person's expression was extremely sinister, and as soon as he spoke, his voice was extremely hoarse, causing those who heard it to feel uncomfortable all over. His Majesty has already gone after him. It's only a matter of time before this kid is captured. This kid's strength is extremely strange. With the strength of the wind-controlling realm, he can contend with a saint. If we can get his fortuitous encounter, it won't be difficult for us to survive the great tribulation of life and death, and we won't have to hide anymore. Another peak saint spoke slowly. His eyes were full of greed, as if he had already thought of all the possibilities after obtaining Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter. This kid dares to kill the first prince. When he is captured, I will tear him into pieces. An old man said in a deep voice. This person was Saint Ancestor Xia, the first prince's absolute supporter. The first prince was cultivated by him. Now that the first prince was dead, his hatred for Chu Fengmian had reached the extreme. Is that so? Tear this Chu into 1,000 pieces? I'm afraid you don't have the ability to do so, old man. A mocking voice suddenly sounded in the entire palace. Hearing this voice, the ashen-faced Princess Tianyin and Prince of Bloodkill instantly woke up. This voice was Chu Fengmian's voice. Who is it? Why are you sneaking around? This voice is that kid's. How dare he sneak into our palace? Little bastard, don't sneak around. Come out. Saint Ancestor Xia roared angrily. A gust of spiritual energy turned into an incomparably huge arm and grabbed at the place where Chu Fengmian had just spoken. Old man, it seems like you want to die. Hearing the words little bastard, Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. Suddenly, a sword flashed past, and the incomparably huge arm was completely cut off. Chapter 371. Isn't this kid being chased by Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Why did he suddenly appear? Where is Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Where did he go? Did this kid escape from the hands of Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Impossible. Even a pinnacle saint couldn't escape from Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang. What qualifications does this kid have? The saints of Qin Shi Huang were all stunned by Chu Fengmian's sudden appearance. Wasn't Chu Fengmian being chased by Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Why did he suddenly appear in the imperial city? Moreover, Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang wasn't here either. Kid, where's Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Old ancestor Qin Mang looked at Chu Fengmian and asked coldly. Looks like you must have had some fortuitous encounter to be able to shake off Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang. However, you actually dared to return to the imperial city after killing the crown prince. Looks like you're courting death. Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang. He's just a dead man. Why? Do you want to collect his corpse? It's a pity that his corpse has already turned into ashes in the shattered space. Hearing old ancestor Qin Mang's words, Chu Fengmian said calmly. What he said was true. However, in the ears of countless people present, it was simply a joke, arrogance, and even a provocation. Killed Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Kid, who do you think you are? A life and death expert? What a joke. What a joke. Even Zhao Wudi didn't dare to say that he could kill great Emperor Qin Shi Huang. "Kid, are you crazy?" The saints spoke, questioning and mocking. Great Emperor Qin Shi Huang was the #1 expert of the imperial city. He was a great existence that was only a step away from life and death realm. How could he die in the hands of Chu Fengmian? Hearing these words, Chu Fengmian felt helpless. What he said was true, but unfortunately, no one believed him. Old ancestor Qin Mang looked at Chu Fengmian and said angrily, "Kid, don't talk nonsense here." "Old ancestor Qin Mang, don't talk nonsense with this kid. Today, I'll kill him first and extract his soul. Read his memories. Then, everything will be clear." Saint Ancestor Xia roared furiously. Spiritual energy erupted from his body as he attacked. He was a peak saint. Even if he didn't use his full strength, he wasn't someone ordinary martial artists could go against. In their eyes, Chu Fengmian was at most a little guy who had some fortuitous encounters. They never thought that Chu Fengmian could contend against them. However, this sword was almost silent. It was simply beyond his understanding, causing him to be stunned for a moment. Then, his face became incomparably furious. He was a pinnacle saint, an old antique in the Qin Empire. Now, Chu Fengmian had neutralized his moves so easily, which made him extremely angry. Judgment Cannon. War God's Fury. Saint Ancestor Xia roared angrily and mobilized all the spiritual power in his body. He suppressed his power to the strongest level before the life and death tribulation. It could be said that he had unleashed his most terrifying power in one fell swoop. This power condensed on the fist wind of Saint Ancestor Xia. Suddenly, he punched towards Chu Fengmian. Judgment Cannon. This is a famous cultivation technique in the northern region. This is Saint Ancestor Xia's trump card. Now that he's really angry, he wants to kill Chu Fengmian in one fell swoop. Chu Fengmian is a dead man now. He provoked Saint Ancestor Xia. Saint Ancestor Xia is a peak saint. He can easily kill him with a wave of his hand. Some saints in the Qin Empire saw Saint Ancestor Xia attack in anger and spoke one after another. Their words were indescribably relaxed. Looking at Chu Fengmian was like looking at a dead man. A person who wasn't even a saint, no matter how many fortuitous encounters he had, could he contend against a peak saint? A peak saint was someone who was close to the life and death realm. In their eyes, it was easy for Saint Ancestor Xia to kill Chu Fengmian. Be careful. Princess Tianyin was shocked when she saw Saint Ancestor Xia attack in anger. She knew Chu Fengmian's strength. However, Saint Ancestor Xia was a peak saint. It wasn't easy to contend with him. Judgment Cannon? It's just an entry-level martial technique of the barren ancient sect's 9 styles of judgment. How dare you give it such an arrogant name? Chu Fengmian snorted, causing Saint Ancestor Xia's expression to change drastically. He was the one who named the Judgment Cannon. Very few people knew that the Judgment Cannon was actually an entry-level martial technique of the barren ancient sect's 9 styles of judgment. Saint Ancestor Xia had once met an expert of the barren ancient sect. That was how he got the technique. He condensed it himself and named it the Judgment Cannon. No one in the Qin Empire had recognized it for thousands of years. After all, the Qin Empire was just a small and remote country. They couldn't touch the behemoths like the 7 sects. However, Saint Ancestor Xia didn't expect Chu Fengmian to recognize the origin of the Judgment Cannon at a glance. He was shocked. However, the shock soon turned into greed in Saint Ancestor Xia's eyes. Chu Fengmian even knew about the barren ancient sect. Obviously, Chu Fengmian had a fortuitous encounter, one that was related to the 7 sects. The 7 sects were at the peak of the 9 regions. Saint Ancestor Xia could dominate the Qin Empire after learning 1 or 2 styles of the Judgment Cannon. If Chu Fengmian really had a fortuitous encounter related to the 7 sects, if he killed Chu Fengmian today, he would have a great harvest. If he obtained Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter, it would only be a matter of time before he stepped into the life and death realm. Brat, so what if you know the origin? Today, I'd like to see how a junior like you can compete with me. Saint Ancestor Xia snorted. So what if he had a fortuitous encounter? He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian could compete with a peak saint. Chu Fengmian was only at the peak of the wind-controlling realm. He didn't believe that there was such a genius in the world. He was ready to kill Chu Fengmian with a punch. Compete? Old man, you're wrong. Do you think you're qualified to compete with me? Judgment Cannon? Break it! Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. His body moved abruptly as he threw out a punch. Although Chu Fengmian didn't seem to have used too much power, he was still able to break the sacred judgment scripture of the Xia ancestor in one fell swoop. Get the hell over here. That wasn't the end of it. After Chu Fengmian broke Saint Ancestor Xia's judgment cannon, he reached out and grabbed Saint Ancestor Xia's body. It was as though Saint Ancestor Xia had lost control of his body and was grabbed by Chu Fengmian. Saint Ancestor Xia was a peak saint, one of the ancestors of the Qin Empire. He was a real hidden expert. Unless it was a major event, he wouldn't appear. In the eyes of countless people in the Qin Empire, Saint Ancestor Xia was an invincible figure. But now, such an invincible figure was caught in Chu Fengmian's hand. No matter how much Saint Ancestor Xia channeled his spiritual power, he couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian's hand. Today's fourth watch is over. Please give me a tip and subscribe. Chapter 372. Chu Fengmian was too ruthless. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, in front of countless experts of the Qin Empire, Chu Fengmian grabbed Saint Ancestor Xia in his hand. No one present dared to believe what they were seeing. Even Princess Tianyin and Prince Bloodkill, who had some understanding of Chu Fengmian, were shocked. This was simply too unexpected. Chu Fengmian's strength was beyond their imagination. There had not been a life-and-death realm expert in the Qin Empire for 1,000 years. Pinnacle saints were already invincible in everyone's eyes. Such an invincible figure was held in Chu Fengmian's hand like a chick. No one would dare to believe it. Saint Ancestor Xia has been captured. Old Ancestor Jianwang and the other 3 pinnacle saints' faces changed color. Similarly, the faces of countless saints present also changed. Originally, in their eyes, Chu Fengmian's appearance this time was akin to courting death. They could easily kill Chu Fengmian and seize his fortuitous encounter. But now, Chu Fengmian actually had the strength to capture Saint Ancestor Xia. This was beyond everyone's expectations. As a pinnacle saint, Saint Ancestor Xia was no match for Chu Fengmian and was easily captured by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's strength was far more terrifying than they had imagined. Let go of Saint Ancestor Xia. A few old antiques of the Qin Empire's royal family were taken aback, then shouted loudly. One by one, they gathered their spiritual power and were ready to attack. Let's see who dares. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. A dragon's roar suddenly came out from his mouth. Under this dragon's roar, countless people present dared not step forward. Chu Fengmian's strength was simply a mystery. Now, no one dared to step forward to test Chu Fengmian's true strength. This is too arrogant. Old Ancestor Jianwang looked at Chu Fengmian with anger on his face. When they saw Chu Fengmian appear, they originally wanted to capture Chu Fengmian and seize his fortuitous encounter. However, Chu Fengmian's powerful appearance was simply beyond their expectations. Chu Fengmian took action and captured Saint Ancestor Xia in an instant. Saint Ancestor Xia was an old antique of the royal family of the Qin Empire. Now that he was in the hands of such a junior, it was simply embarrassing. This was not only a loss of face for Saint Ancestor Xia, it was also a loss of face for the royal family of the Qin Empire. In the imperial city, Saint Ancestor Xia, one of the great ancestors, was captured by Chu Fengmian. If this news were to spread, it would cause an uproar. You must be the kid from the kingdom of martial victory, the one who acquired the legacy of Grand Emperor Richlush, Chu Fengmian. Patriarch Mu Yi, a peak saint with a sinister look, suddenly said. He looked at Chu Fengmian and slowly opened his mouth. You might have come across some good fortune, and have the legacy of Grand Emperor Richlush, but you're not invincible. Trespassing on the imperial city is a grave crime. From the way Patriarch Mui spoke, it was clear that he had Chu Fengmian in his grasp. Release Saint Ancestor Xia, give up any resistance, and acknowledge allegiance. Hand over all of your good fortune, and you'll be able to wash away your sins. That's the best choice for you. There were 5 peak saints present, as well as more than 20 other saints. This level of power was enough to subjugate any other saint. Unfortunately for them, their opponent was Chu Fengmian. As far as Chu Fengmian was concerned, even if there were 10 times as many saints present, he wouldn't care. Only a life and death expert would be able to deal with them. To Chu Fengmian, these people were like ants. What? You want me to acknowledge allegiance? What a joke. You think you're going to rely on these old-timers from the imperial city of the Qin Empire? Chu Fengmian laughed heartily in response to Patriarch Muye's words. Did these old fogies really think they could suppress him? If it had been the previous Chu Fengmian, he might have been a little afraid. But now, even if these pinnacle saints attacked him recklessly, he wouldn't be afraid even if it led to a life-and-death calamity. Chu Fengmian sneered. Let me tell you something. I'm here today to make all of you acknowledge allegiance. Now, kneel down obediently, relax your mind, and allow me to place a restriction on you. If anyone dares to resist, I'll kill them. You! Patriarch Muyi was enraged by Chu Fengmian's words. Chu Fengmian's words were too arrogant. A single person wanted the entire royal family of Qin Empire to kneel down and acknowledge allegiance. No matter how good-tempered a person was, they wouldn't be able to contain their anger. Those words were too rude, too arrogant, and too condescending. From Chu Fengmian's words, he didn't put anyone in his eyes at all. Brat, you're too arrogant. Release Saint Ancestor Xia. That's your only chance to live. Shouted a saint. It was none other than Great Prince Demolisher. Great Prince Demolisher? I didn't expect you to jump out on your own. I'm afraid you're also involved in plotting against me. Kneel! Repent! Chu Fengmian looked at Great Prince Demolisher and snorted. He waved his hand, and a wave of spiritual energy swept toward Great Prince Demolisher. This surge of spiritual energy transformed into a giant palm that pressed down on eldest Prince Demolisher, forcing him to his knees. Brat! You want me to kneel? Who do you think you are? Great Prince Demolisher shouted angrily. He spat out a mouthful of Saint Blood Essence, which burned fiercely. Blood Essence Sacrifice. Heavenly Strike. This was the Saint's Blood Essence. All the blood essence that had been burned fused into his fingertip and turned into a sword light that suddenly pierced towards Chu Fengmian. Burning your blood essence? You're just wasting your energy. Do you think you can defeat me with this little bit of knowledge? You're just a child's play in front of me. Break! Chu Fengmian stood in place with a calm expression. He didn't even look at Great Prince Demolisher, as if he didn't take him seriously. Heavenly Strike was Great Prince Demolisher's killing move. Even peak saints didn't dare to underestimate it. However, Chu Fengmian didn't take it seriously at all. He stood in place with his hands behind his back. He didn't move at all. He didn't even try to block it. What is he doing? Is he not going to block Great Prince Demolisher's Heavenly Strike? He's courting death. This brat is courting death. Even peak saints have to be cautious when dealing with Great Prince Demolisher's Heavenly Strike. This brat is so arrogant. He's not far from death. Countless saints from the royal family of the Qin Empire couldn't help but comment when they saw Chu Fengmian's actions. Chapter 373. Great Prince Demolisher wasn't a weakling. He was a saint at the 8th level of the Divine Power Realm. Even a saint at the pinnacle would be afraid of his all-out attack. Yet, Chu Fengmian was standing in place and trying to fight back. He was simply courting death. The moment this finger was pointed out, the aftermath of the attack immediately exploded, turning into a storm that could destroy everything, sweeping through everything. Great Prince Demolisher controlled the power of the storm to an exquisite degree. The power of the storm didn't disperse and blasted toward Chu Fengmian at the same time. What an arrogant move. Boy, how dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Today, I will completely kill you. I will make you pay for your arrogance. Great Prince Demolisher was infuriated when he saw Chu Fengmian standing motionlessly in the same spot. Chu Fengmian's action showed that he didn't take him seriously at all. Although Chu Fengmian was powerful, being able to capture Saint Ancestor Xiao was enough to prove everything. However, the celestial strike that he activated by burning his essence blood was difficult for even a saint at the pinnacle to resist. Moreover, Chu Fengmian didn't resist at all. He had secretly activated his burning essence blood and spiritual power to the extreme. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with this finger. The celestial being strike arrived in front of Chu Fengmian in an instant, stabbing at his chest. Only when it finally arrived in front of Chu Fengmian did his expression change slightly. He slowly opened his mouth and spat out a word. Destroy. As soon as this word came out, it seemed as if endless power exploded. The celestial strike in front of Chu Fengmian was shattered almost instantly. It shattered again and again, and the supreme spiritual power within was dissolved. The power contained in Chu Fengmian's word was extremely mysterious. Although it was illusory, it contained the most terrifying and mysterious power in the world. Countless people present were stunned when they heard this word. It took a long time for them to react. Impossible. Great Prince Demolisher was the first to react. Seeing his celestial strike being dissolved by Chu Fengmian's word, his face was filled with disbelief. One word. Chu Fengmian didn't even move and didn't make any moves. He actually dissolved Great Prince Demolisher's most powerful attack after burning his essence blood. If Chu Fengmian resisted with all his strength, Great Prince Demolisher could accept it. However, Great Prince Demolisher couldn't accept this scene even if he saw it 10,000 times. It was as if he was really an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. He used all his strength, but he couldn't hurt Chu Fengmian at all. He didn't even have the qualifications to make a move. I don't believe that you're really an invincible figure. All essence blood. Burn it all. Great Palm of Annihilation. The Great Prince of Annihilation roared furiously. His essence blood burned as he pushed his power to the limit. Suddenly, a huge palm print slammed towards Chu Fengmian. There is no second chance. Chu Fengmian smiled coldly. With a thought, the ancient war dragon's claw appeared out of thin air. As soon as the war dragon claw was unleashed, the surrounding space started to shatter. The great obliteration palm mark unleashed by the great Grand Prince of Annihilation was easily crushed. At the same time, the war dragon claw pressed down on Great Prince Demolisher's body, shattering his body and soul. His vitality was completely devoured by Chu Fengmian. All of this happened too suddenly. Countless people present were unable to react in time. By the time they did, Chu Fengmian had already killed Eldest Prince Destroyer. His body had been completely destroyed. Only the faint smell of blood lingering in the air reminded everyone of what had happened. Great Prince Demolisher was considered a peerless expert in the royal family. Moreover, he was at the 8th level of the divine power realm. He didn't have any scruples when he attacked and could go all out. But even so, Chu Fengmian still managed to kill Great Prince Destroyer with ease. Just one move was enough to destroy him. Chu Fengmian deliberately allowed Great Prince Demolisher to use this move. If Chu Fengmian had attacked from the start, Great Prince Demolisher wouldn't have been able to make half a move. What a terrifying strength! Fallen. Great Prince Demolisher actually fell just like that. He was actually killed by this kid in a single move. Even Zhao Wudi wouldn't be able to do this. Celestial Being Strike. Great Palm of Annihilation. Great Prince Demolisher burned his essence blood to execute 2 ultimate secret techniques, but they couldn't do anything to Chu Fengmian. They couldn't harm him at all. Chu Fengmian neutralized them with a single word. Chu Fengmian, on the other hand, killed the Great Prince of Destruction with a single move. The difference in power between the two of them is terrifying. Furthermore, I can sense that this brat is only at the peak of the wind resistance realm. He's not even a saint. A Imperial Wind Realm martial artist killed an 8th level divine power realm saint with a single move. I've lived for thousands of years, but I've never heard of such a thing. The saints were dumbstruck. They were extremely shocked and started to discuss. It's said that the geniuses of the Biming Academy can also kill Divine Power Realm martial artists at the Imperial Wind Realm. But those are the peerless geniuses secretly nurtured by the Biming Academy. This kid is just a kid who obtained some fortuitous encounters in the victorious martial nation. How can he compare to them? Many people were discussing, but the only thing they were certain of was that Chu Fengmian wasn't someone to be trifled with. It could be said that none of them dared to attack Chu Fengmian. It was already impossible for them to kill Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian had killed Great Prince Demolisher and captured Saint Ancestor Xia, he had truly established his might. Although the people present weren't afraid of Chu Fengmian, no one dared to underestimate him. At the very least, they regarded him as someone on the same level as them. Chu Fengmian, why did you come to the Imperial City this time? To save someone? Release Saint Ancestor Xia first, and we can talk to you. A peak saint who hadn't spoken until now muttered to himself. Who are you? Chu Fengmian glanced at the peak saint and asked. My name is Gu Fen. I'm the Imperial family's great consecrator. The great consecrator Gu Fen looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly. You're also here to save someone, right? Release Saint Ancestor Xia first, and our Imperial family can negotiate with you. Chapter 374. Head Consecrator. Chu Fengmian glanced at Gu Fen and involuntarily sneered after hearing his words. I'm here to save people, but there's no need to talk about conditions. Chu Fengmian glanced at the crowd with disdain in his eyes. None of you are qualified to talk about conditions with me. I've said it before. If all of you kneel down and submit, I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, all of you will die. Talk about conditions with Chu Fengmian? Chu Fengmian had no interest in talking about conditions with a bunch of ants. He was here to settle the trouble with the royal family of the Qin Empire. Chu Fengmian did not care about anyone at the scene. Even if they attacked together, they were ants to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, don't be arrogant. You've barged into the Imperial City. The royal family of the Qin Empire will not be trampled on by others. Today, with so many experts here, if we attack together, you'll definitely die. No matter how powerful you are, you'll still die today. The head consecrator Gu Fen looked at Chu Fengmian and said angrily. Chu Fengmian's words were too arrogant. It was clear from his words that he didn't want to continue the discussion. Death if they didn't submit? Among the people present, which one of them wasn't someone with a high status in the Qin Empire? Not to mention submitting to someone, they hadn't even suffered a small loss before. This great consecrator, Gu Fen, was vaguely the number one person in the Qin Empire apart from Emperor Qin. He was an existence that everyone respected. Even Zhao Wudi had to give him some face and did not dare to provoke him. Today, Chu Fengmian actually wanted him to submit. This simply aroused the anger in his heart, and he could no longer suppress it. He would rather fight to the death with Chu Fengmian than submit to Chu Fengmian. Moreover, he did not believe that Chu Fengmian could compete with a peak saint like them. Although Saint Ancestor Xia was captured by Chu Fengmian, he did not dare to attack because he was afraid of a life and death situation. In order to avoid the calamity of life and death, they could only control their strength to the 9th level of the Divine Force realm. Compared to a pinnacle saint, there was still a difference of an entire level. If Saint Ancestor Xia were to throw caution to the wind and unleash all his power, it would be easy for him to break free from Chu Fengmian. Great Consecrator Gu Fen? Since you want to resist me, I will be the first to kill you. No, with your strength, it would be a pity to kill you. I will suppress you and engrave a seal on your body, turning you into my slave to be used by me. Chu Fengmian looked at Gu Fen and laughed. His palm moved and immediately pressed down on Gu Fen. You want to suppress me? Brat, you are too arrogant. Gu Fen roared crazily. His face was flushed red because he was extremely angry. He roared furiously as a strange purple flame appeared on his body. As soon as the purple flames appeared, the entire palace seemed to be roasted by the heat. Countless saints present had to gather their spiritual energy to resist the heat of the flames. Purple Sun Primordial Fire. This is one of the most powerful flames in the world, the Purple Sun Primordial Fire. This Purple Sun Primordial Fire comes from the 9 heavens. Gufan once obtained this Purple Sun Primordial Fire by chance. Almost no one in the Divine Force realm can defeat it. The High Priest is really angry. He has already used all his strength regardless of the calamity of life and death. Once the Purple Sun Primordial Fire appears, I am afraid this brat will die. Not necessarily. This person's strength is extremely strange. He has just killed Great Prince Destroyer. What's so great about killing Great Prince Destroyer? If the High Priest uses the Purple Sun Primordial Fire, he can also kill Great Prince Destroyer. I don't believe this brat can resist the flames that even Zhao Wudi couldn't resist. Seeing Gufan make a move, countless saints present exclaimed. Gufan had been a pinnacle saint for almost hundreds of years. This was the first time he had made a move in these hundreds of years. If he hadn't been angered to death by Chu Fengmian's words, he wouldn't have disregarded the calamity of life and death and attacked with all his strength. However, since he had attacked with all his strength, it also represented Gufan's determination. He had to kill Chu Fengmian even if it meant risking his life. Little bastard, you forced me to do this. Come and experience the terror of a pinnacle saint. Purple Sun Primordial Fire. Extinguish. Countless Purple Sun Primordial Fire transformed into a long dragon. With a roar, it rushed toward Chu Fengmian. This long dragon was formed by the Purple Sun Primordial Fire. It was extremely hot, and even saints couldn't touch it. They could only take a beating without being able to resist. Moreover, the Purple Sun Primordial Fire was formed endlessly. As long as Gufan still had spiritual energy, this long dragon would be reborn endlessly. It was almost invincible. Purple Sun Primordial Fire? It's just the weakest flame in the upper 9 heavens. You think it's a treasure? Chu Fengmian glanced at the Purple Sun Primordial Fire and said disdainfully. In his previous life, he had played with all kinds of flames when refining weapons and elixirs. Among the flames in this world, the best were the flames in the upper 9 heavens. Among them, the Purple Sun Primordial Fire was the flame in the first heaven. Although it was also in the upper 9 heavens, it was the weakest. When Chu Fengmian was refining elixirs in his previous life, he despised the Purple Sun Primordial Fire. He had never thought highly of it. Gufan actually treated it as a treasure, which made Chu Fengmian feel a little ridiculous. Battle Dragon's Might. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and all the ancient battle dragon blood essence in his body was activated. 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were formed at the same time, forming a real battle dragon claw. When the battle dragon claw was formed, it was countless times larger than the long dragon formed by the Purple Sun Primordial Fire. It immediately rushed toward the long dragon. The long dragon formed by the Purple Sun Primordial Fire was crushed in an instant. Boy, do you think this is the end? Seeing the long dragon being crushed, Gufan sneered. The Purple Sun Primordial Fire can burn everything in this world. It can even burn your spiritual energy. If you want to deal with me, you are still too inexperienced. The moment Gufan opened his mouth, the crushed Purple Sun Primordial Fire climbed onto the battle dragon claw, burning fiercely as if it wanted to burn the battle dragon claw. Is that so? Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with disdain. The battle dragon claw moved, and the countless flames were directly dispersed. Although it had been burned for a long time, there was not a single scratch on the battle dragon claw. The battle dragon claw was actually not afraid of the Purple Sun Primordial Fire. The ancient battle dragon was able to soar in the upper 9 heavens. All the flames in the upper 9 heavens were meaningless to the ancient battle dragon claw. The battle dragon claw formed by Chu Fengmian was also not afraid of the puny Purple Sun Primordial Fire. To the battle dragon claw, this bit of burning was not even comparable to an itch. Chapter 375. The Purple Sun Primordial Fire was Gufan's greatest opportunity, as well as his greatest trump card. In the Qin Empire, he was invincible with the Purple Sun primordial fire and had never tasted defeat. He was ranked second in the royal family of the Qin Empire because the Qin Emperor had the royal bloodline, which allowed him to control the power of the earth veins. With the support of the earth veins, the Qin Emperor's strength was close to the life and death realm in the imperial city. That was why he was ranked second. If the Qin Emperor did not use the power of the earth veins, Gufan's strength might not be any weaker than the Qin Emperor. His Purple Sun primordial fire was a fire that reached the 9 heavens. In the small Qin Empire, it was absolutely invincible. However, he did not expect that his Purple Sun primordial fire would be so powerless against Chu Fengmian. Not only was his Purple Sun primordial fire easily broken by Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Claw, the Purple Sun primordial fire's burning had no effect on Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Claw. The Purple Sun primordial fire is useless against this person. Such a terrifying fire can't hurt this person. Countless people present could not help but turn pale as they murmured. They had all witnessed the power of the Purple Sun primordial fire. Hundreds of years ago, a pinnacle saint wanted to deal with the royal family, and it was Gufan who took action. At that time, Gufan was only a 9th-level divine power realm saint. Facing a pinnacle saint, he was at an absolute disadvantage. However, he used the Purple Sun primordial fire to kill that pinnacle saint, burning his body to ashes. It was because of this that he was able to sit firmly in his position. However, when facing Chu Fengmian, the Purple Sun primordial fire was useless. How could they believe it? Humph! Gufan snorted coldly. Spiritual energy erupted from his body. With a move, he gave up on the fire and charged at Chu Fengmian. Since the fire was useless, then he would fight with strength. Even without the Purple Sun primordial fire, he did not believe that Chu Fengmian could fight against him. After all, Chu Fengmian was only a wind-controlling realm warrior, while he was a peak saint. No matter how many fortuitous encounters Chu Fengmian had, the difference in strength could not be made up for. Although Gufan was famous for his flames, his martial cultivation wasn't bad either. The might of a true dragon. All of a sudden, the power that erupted from Gufan's body caused many dragon scales to grow on his body. These dragon scales were the true dragon scales of a war dragon. For Gufan to be able to step into this realm, he had encountered countless fortuitous encounters. When he was young, he had encountered a dying true dragon. He had eaten the true dragon's meat and drank its blood. His bloodline also contained the power of a true dragon. Right now, he was famous for his flames, causing people to forget that he was also a martial arts expert. True dragon body. This Gufan actually has the bloodline of a true dragon. Terrifying. Gufan himself is a peak saint. If he has the power of a true dragon, how terrifying would his strength be? Doesn't Chu Fengmian also know the martial arts of the dragon race? I wonder who's going to win this time. Everyone was shocked when they saw the changes on Gufan's body. Some of the younger saints didn't know that Gufan actually had such terrifying strength. Boom! Gufan attacked. His fist went straight for Chu Fengmian's life. As soon as the fist was thrown out, endless dragon might was added to it. It was as if a true dragon had attacked. The power of this fist had already surpassed the peak saint and approached the life and death realm. Under this fist, even a peak saint might not be able to block it. Such a terrifying fist was so laughable in Chu Fengmian's eyes. The true dragon bloodline was indeed incomparably powerful. It could be considered one of the most powerful bloodlines in the 9 regions. Gufan's fortuitous encounters were indeed amazing. For him to be able to reach this step, he had indeed encountered many fortuitous encounters. If it was against others, the true dragon bloodline would indeed be a killing move that countless people couldn't resist. However, Gufan had chosen the wrong opponent. He shouldn't have chosen to be Chu Fengmian's opponent. True dragon bloodline? Chu Fengmian had the ancient battle dragon bloodline. Compared to the true dragon bloodline, it was many times purer and stronger. Moreover, the ancient battle dragon bloodline was innately restraining the true dragon bloodline. Gufen's strongest trump card was mercilessly restrained by Chu Fengmian. Gufen had the true dragon bloodline, while Chu Fengmian had the ancient battle dragon bloodline. Chu Fengmian dealing with Gufen was as easy as an ancestor beating up his grandson. The moment Gufen punched out, Chu Fengmian's face was calm. However, endless battle dragon strength burst out from his body. Kneel! The battle dragon claw suddenly appeared. The moment Gufen felt the power of the battle dragon claw, the true dragon bloodline's power in his body dissipated. All of his strength had surrendered. That punch had been easily crushed by the battle dragon claw. There was no way to compare the strength of the two of them. If it were any other bloodline, there might be a chance for them to contend against Chu Fengmian. However, Gufen's true dragon bloodline was completely restrained by Chu Fengmian. After the battle dragon claw crushed the power of the fist, an even stronger power enveloped Gufen's body. The strong power pressed down on Gufen's body, causing his knees to bend, and he knelt on the ground. The second strongest person in the Qin Empire's royal family, the strongest person present, Gufen, was defeated by Chu Fengmian in a single move and knelt on the ground. This scene shocked countless people. None of them dared to believe it. A moment ago, Gufen's true dragon bloodline was extremely powerful. However, he couldn't even withstand a single move from Chu Fengmian. This was the greatest irony. The confidence of countless people present was instantly destroyed. They originally thought that no matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, he wouldn't be able to contend against the royal family. However, this time around, their guess was completely wrong. Since Chu Fengmian dared to come alone, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of the royal family of the Qin Empire. Now that Gufen was kneeling on the ground, who could possibly be a match for Chu Fengmian? Primordial God Fist. Overlord of the Heavens. The moment Gufen knelt on the ground, two martial skills suddenly blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Old Ancestor Qin Mang and another peak saint, Old Ancestor Wang Feng, attacked together. They wanted to save Gufen from Chu Fengmian. The fourth night watch ended. Chapter 376. Saint Ancestor Xia had already been captured by Chu Fengmian. If Gufen was also suppressed by Chu Fengmian, they would be no match for Chu Fengmian. They had no choice but to save great consecrator Gufen. Two martial skills blasted towards Chu Fengmian at the same time. Not only did they want to save Gu Fengmian, but they also wanted to kill him before he could react. Old Ancestor Qin Mang and Old Ancestor Wang Feng did not show any mercy when they attacked. They used their full strength and launched a sneak attack. The two old ancestors of the Qin Empire's imperial family had already disregarded their status and launched a sneak attack on Chu Fengmian. This made countless people's jaws drop. However, this also proved that Chu Fengmian's current strength was enough to force the two old ancestors to launch a sneak attack on Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had just suppressed Gufen, and now was the time for him to relax. Launching a sneak attack was extremely ruthless. Seeing the two martial skills approaching Chu Fengmian without him reacting, Old Ancestor Qin Mang's face revealed a sinister smile. At such a distance, Chu Fengmian could no longer dodge. Under such a sudden situation, such a terrifying power burst out. Even if Chu Fengmian could react, he would be severely injured, if not killed. Seeing the two martial skills blasted towards Chu Fengmian, Old Ancestor Qin Mang laughed loudly. "Junior, all is fair in war. Don't blame this old man. You're so arrogant, daring to trespass into the imperial city. Only death awaits you. Two old men, do you think you can defeat me by launching a sneak attack?" Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. Seeing the two old ancestors attack, he sneered. Old Ancestor Qin Mang and Old Ancestor Wang Feng wanted to launch a sneak attack on Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness enveloped the entire palace. Not a single movement could escape his eyes. Chu Fengmian naturally knew that the two old ancestors wanted to launch a sneak attack. However, he was not prepared at all. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, the two old ancestors were nothing in his eyes. So what if they launched a sneak attack? His eyes moved and saw through the martial skills of the two old ancestors with a glance. The moment the two martial skills bombarded towards Chu Fengmian raised his hand. With a wave of his hand, endless power exploded from Chu Fengmian's hand. Even a casual strike of his could surpass the power of a peak saint. Chu Fengmian clenched his hand, and the two martial skills were directly shattered by Chu Fengmian. The two of you dare to resist me. Looks like you want to kneel on the ground like Gufen. After neutralizing their attacks, Chu Fengmian sneered. He waved his hand and pressed down on Ancestor Qin Mang and Ancestor Wang Feng. An enormous amount of spiritual energy was about to suppress the two of them, forcing them to kneel on the ground. Attack together! The last pinnacle saint, the great general of the Qin Empire, Ancestor Jinsu, suddenly roared. The countless saints in the palace unleashed their spiritual energy one by one. Countless spiritual energies began to combine in the air and transformed into a massive array. Since they were far from being Chu Fengmian's match in a one-on-one battle, they planned to join forces and suppress Chu Fengmian completely. Everyone present was a saint. Every one of them had countless fortuitous encounters, trump cards, and mysterious martial skills. In a single breath, all of them were unleashed and condensed in the air. Under Ancestor Jinsu's command, they suddenly formed a massive array and charged towards Chu Fengmian. Junior. You're too arrogant. Enough ants can bite an elephant to death. We might not be your match in a one-on-one battle, but with so many of us here, it's easy to kill you. Ancestor Jinsu said coldly. I'll give you one last chance. Destroy your own cultivation and hand over all your fortuitous encounters. If so, we can still let you live. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving here alive. Ancestor Jinsu said confidently. With more than 20 saints present, even if a life and death realm expert came, they still had the power to fight. Now that Chu Fengmian was alone, they did not believe that Chu Fengmian had the ability to kill so many of them. Destroy my own cultivation? Don't even think about leaving here alive? Chu Fengmian did not even raise his head. He did not even bother to pay attention to them as he said indifferently. A bunch of useless chickens and pottery dogs. Do you think you can overturn the heavens by joining forces? Enough ants can bite an elephant to death? Unfortunately, no matter how many ants there are, it's impossible to bite a true dragon to death. As soon as Chu Fengmian's words came out, Ancestor Jinsu's face immediately became furious. Arrogant. Arrogant. The meaning of Chu Fengmian's words was simply saying that they were all ants and Chu Fengmian was a true dragon. They were all powerhouses who had stepped into the divine power realm and became saints. They were respected by everyone. When had they ever been called ants? Now, there was nothing in Ancestor Jinsu's heart except for boundless anger. Only by killing Chu Fengmian could he quell his anger. Annihilating demon suppressing array. Ancestor Jinsu roared. The power of countless saints condensed together, forming an incomparably huge array in the air. When the annihilating demon suppressing array appeared, lines rushed toward Chu Fengmian, suppressing him. They wanted to completely suppress him. This annihilating demon suppressing array contained the power of all the saints present. What kind of scene would it be when more than 20 saints attacked together? Perhaps if they joined forces, they could easily destroy a country like the victorious Wu country. Reckless brat. Die! Ancestor Jinsu sneered. He directly activated the power of the annihilating demon suppressing array, wanting to completely suppress Chu Fengmian. This incomparably huge array pressed toward Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not even blink. He only secretly moved his mind, and the scarlet flame sword came in front of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian held the scarlet flame sword and slashed out. Power of creation. Enhance the blade. However, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself the moment he unleashed the sword strike. The power of the multicolored light within his divine meridians was added to the blade's edge. Suddenly, the sword was slashed out. The sword seemed to be weak, but when the tip of the sword landed on the heavenly annihilation demon subduing array, the array that contained the full power of more than 20 saints was instantly destroyed. From the middle, it was forcefully torn apart. Then, countless cracks appeared. This annihilating demon-suppressing array was actually broken by Chu Fengmian's slash. Boom! Seeing the heaven-destroying demon-subduing formation being broken so easily and then shattered, the countless people present were dumbfounded. The array that they had formed together could easily suppress a saint at the pinnacle. How could it be broken so easily? Chapter 377. This was no ordinary formation. It was the heaven-destroying demon-subduing formation created by the combined efforts of all the 20-odd saints present. The annihilation demon-subduing formation could suppress a pinnacle saint in an instant without the slightest ability to fight back. But now, under Chu Fengmian's seemingly calm sword, it was broken just like that. One sword destroyed the formation. This caused the countless people present to not be shocked or surprised. For a time, all the saints in the surroundings were stunned. Even Ancestor Jinsu was stunned because such an outcome was something that he'd never expected. He originally thought that even if Chu Fengmian could break the annihilation demon-subduing formation, he would have to expend a lot of energy. Then, he could seize the opportunity to suppress Chu Fengmian. But now, all of his schemes were so laughable. In the face of absolute power, all of his schemes were meaningless. Old Ancestor Jinsu, kneel down too. Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm, as if he had just done something insignificant. He waved his hand and pressed down on old Ancestor Jinsu. In an instant, old Ancestor Jinsu was suppressed to the point that he couldn't breathe. His spiritual power frantically resisted Chu Fengmian's pressure. Ancestor Xia, Qin Mang, Wang Feng, Gu Fen. Are the four of you really going to submit to this kid? At this time, who cares about life and death? Are you going to let this kid ride on our heads? Old Ancestor Jinsu's power suddenly burst out as he roared. He no longer cared about life and death. Without hesitation, he burst out with all his strength and broke free. At the same time, Saint Ancestor Xia, Chief Consecrator Gufen, Old Ancestor Wang Feng, and Old Ancestor Qin Mang in Chu Fengmian's palm also burst out with a tremendous amount of spiritual power. They broke free from Chu Fengmian's pressure and burst out with all their power. These 5 pinnacle saints all didn't care about life and death. They burst out with all their power to fight against Chu Fengmian. What? You don't want to be a coward anymore? Chu Fengmian's face was calm as he glanced at the 5 and said coldly. These pinnacle saints were all afraid of life and death and didn't dare to make a move. They were no different from cowards. Chu Fengmian had always looked down on them. Now that they finally used all their strength, Chu Fengmian glanced at them. But unfortunately, even if you use all your strength, you won't have any chance to resist today. Suppress them all. Chu Fengmian said casually. So what if they used all their strength? So what if they were pinnacle saints? To Chu Fengmian, no matter if it was a saint at the 9th level of the divine power realm or a saint at the peak, they were all the same. They were all ants. Ants were just ants that were slightly stronger. The moment he spoke, the battle dragon claw in front of Chu Fengmian moved once again and blasted towards the 5 of them. You! Do you really think you're? Just now, we were afraid and did not dare to use our full strength. Now that we have used our full strength, this old man alone is enough to kill you. As Saint Ancestor Xia was the first to lose his patience when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He rushed forward and burst out with all his spiritual power. He was the first to be captured by Chu Fengmian. He had been holding back because of the life and death crisis. Now that he no longer had any scruples, he naturally wasn't afraid anymore. With his full strength, Saint Ancestor Xia's strength was dozens of times stronger than before. In an instant, 9 chess pieces appeared in front of him. These 9 chess pieces came from Saint Ancestor Xia's body, and each chess piece contained an extremely powerful spiritual energy. These 9 chess pieces were all mid-grade Earth-level spiritual weapons. Each chess piece was refined from a monster god's monster core. These 9 chess pieces represented the monster cores of the 9 monster gods. Half of a monster god's power came from the blood essence and the other half from the monster core. These 9 chess pieces represented half of the power of the 9 monster gods. The moment the 9 chess pieces appeared, they immediately gathered in the air and formed a large formation. An illusory figure appeared on each chess piece. Heaven Beast, Ghost Chariot, Dragon Roar, Blue Sun Bird. The 9 monster god shadows were the 9 monster cores when they were alive. Now that they were all condensed, waves of power were added to the large formation. Ancient formation of 9 demons. Saint Ancestor Xia's face turned ferocious when he unleashed this killer move. Little bastard, let's see how you're going to resist this time. Saint Ancestor Xia's full strength was already at the peak of the Saint Realm. He stood at the peak of the Saint Realm. Now, with the ancient formation of 9 demons and half of the power of the 9 monster gods, he was almost invincible. Even the most powerful saints might not be a match for him. It's the ancient formation of 9 demons. This is a terrifying formation from ancient times. Saint Ancestor Xiao once obtained it, but I didn't expect him to find the monster cores of the 9 monster gods and cultivate the ancient formation of 9 demons. Saint Ancestor Xia is almost invincible in the Saint Realm after cultivating the ancient formation of 9 demons. No matter how powerful Chu Fengmian is, he won't be able to resist this time. Let's wait for an opportunity and get ready to strike. As long as this kid is defeated, we'll strike together and suppress him. We'll all be rich after obtaining his fortuitous encounter. Countless saints were chatting excitedly at the side. Their words were filled with greed. Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter made them jealous and envious. Now, as long as Chu Fengmian was defeated, they would attack together and completely suppress Chu Fengmian, making it so that Chu Fengmian would never be able to rise again. Ancient formation of 9 demons? This must be the tip of the iceberg of the demon gods sect's 10,000 demon king array. Chu Fengmian looked at the ancient formation of 9 demons and knew what it was at a glance. In the ancient times, there was a large sect, the demon gods sect, that cultivated the legendary 10,000 demon king array. A total of 10,000 monster cores of demon gods and above combined to form a super formation that was invincible in the ancient times. This ancient formation of 9 demons should be a simplified version of the 10,000 demon king array. But even if it was simplified, the ancient formation of 9 demons was extremely mysterious. Chu Fengmian had read countless ancient books, but had only heard of it and had never obtained it. Today, Saint Ancestor Xia had given him a big gift. Such an exquisite formation would be useful to Chu Fengmian. Ancient formation of 9 demons? Unfortunately, even if you have the power of the 9 monster gods, it's useless. What ancient formation of 9 demons? Destroy it. Chapter 378. Chu Fengmian sneered as he pushed the massacre sword principle to the extreme. Boundless killing intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's body, making him look like a peerless god of slaughter. Chu Fengmian had already mastered the massacre sword principle and was now trying to reach the complete realm. It was said that when the massacre sword principle was cultivated to the extreme, one could summon the primordial god of slaughter to strengthen himself. The primordial god of slaughter was an existence comparable to the primordial war dragon, an invincible figure. The current Chu Fengmian was far from being able to summon the real primordial god of slaughter, but he could condense part of the primordial god of slaughter's power and strengthen himself. After killing Emperor Jianwang and devouring his blood essence, Chu Fengmian's massacre sword principle had a new level of comprehension. The primordial god of slaughter's power merged into Chu Fengmian's body. A strong blood qi condensed on the scarlet flame sword's blade. Hiss! Suddenly, the sword in his hand moved. Chu Fengmian's massacre sword principle was strengthened by the primordial god of slaughter's power. The power alone was countless times stronger, becoming extremely powerful in an instant. At the same time, in Chu Fengmian's body, 1,296 drops of primordial war dragon's blood essence erupted with power. The two forces merged with each other and turned into an incomparably huge blood dragon. This blood dragon had a bloody aura that would cause anyone who saw it to feel fear in their hearts. What kind of technique is this? Blood chi as a dragon. How could he have such a terrifying blood chi? How many experts did he kill to obtain such a strong blood chi? The saints were all speechless when they saw Chu Fengmian's blood chi erupting from his body. The blood chi was too strong. They wondered how many saints he had killed to have such a strong blood chi. There were at least dozens of saints who had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. That was why Chu Fengmian had such a strong blood chi. As soon as the blood dragon appeared, it crashed into the ancient formation of 9 demons. Instantly, the ancient formation of 9 demons began to tremble as if it was being shaken. Its power began to weaken. Damn it! Saint Ancestor Xia saw this and roared. He hammered his chest, and countless blood essence spurted out. Once the blood essence was spat out, it began to burn. The power of the burning blood essence was all added to Saint Ancestor Xia's body. 9 demons as one. Annihilation of heaven and earth. The power of the ancient formation of 9 demons combined into one to support Saint Ancestor Xia. Suddenly, he threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. Now that he was burning his essence blood, he wanted to completely defeat Chu Fengmian. He wanted to use this punch to contend with Chu Fengmian's condensed blood dragon. Puff! In the next moment, it was extremely Saint Ancestor Xia was. He was blood s was of the blood dragons ones. Was the god of the blood was one was blood was of it of the of blood lost. The god ofs, to one, to snat off of gods. Of blood that was is of his, of great fortune. In their eyes, Saint Ancestor Xia was almost invincible, but he could not even fight back in front of Chu Fengmian. This ancient formation of 9 demons is not bad. Give it to me. It's just a waste in your hands. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient formation of 9 demons and grabbed it. He wanted to take the ancient formation of 9 demons. Stop! How dare you! Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, the other 4 peak saints could not help but step forward and attack Chu Fengmian with countless martial skills. Primordial God Fist. Overlord of the Heavens. Dragon fighting in the wild. Shattering the void. Ancestor Qin Mang, Ancestor Wang Feng, Chief Reverend Gu Fen, and Ancestor Jin Su attacked at the same time. Now, they no longer cared about their own identities. The 4 famous experts actually joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian. What? Do you think you can defeat me by joining forces? Chu Fengmian snorted coldly in his heart. The power of creation was quietly channeled into the sword. Without the power of creation, Chu Fengmian could destroy the Great Tribulation and kill Emperor Qin Huang, who was almost invincible among the saints. Now that Chu Fengmian had the power of creation, even if the peak saints attacked together, Chu Fengmian would not take them seriously. All of you, break! Chu Fengmian slashed out with his sword, facing the 4 martial skills. The 4 combined martial techniques of the 4 peak saints were shattered in an instant after the clash. This confrontation was no longer a competition of skills. Instead, it was a genuine confrontation of power. What they were competing in was only strength. This also meant that in a confrontation of strength, the 4 peak saints were no match for Chu Fengmian even if they joined forces. Is this person invincible? He's actually stronger than the 4 peak saints. He's only in the wind-controlling realm. He hasn't even stepped into the divine power realm. Such a monstrous talent should not exist. A saint's face flushed red when he saw this scene, and he shouted loudly. Peak saints were invincible under the divine power realm. But now, the 4 peak saints had already attacked with all their might, disregarding the Great Tribulation. Even when they joined forces, they were still no match for Chu Fengmian. This scene was enough to drive people crazy. Hearing the discussions, he did not need to explain. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the power of creation, he was no longer in the category of ordinary martial artists. Even among the geniuses, there were very few who could obtain the power of creation. It could be said that Chu Fengmian had already surpassed most martial artists in terms of strength. Even if they were in a higher realm than Chu Fengmian, they could not be compared to Chu Fengmian in terms of strength. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the power of creation, he could compete with the legendary geniuses. It was not surprising that he could do this. Ancient Nine Demon Formation, give it to me. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and immediately took the Ancient Nine Demon Formation. When the Ancient Nine Demon Formation was in Chu Fengmian's hands, it tried to resist Chu Fengmian with its strength. However, under Chu Fengmian's dragon might, the Ancient Nine Demon Formation was quickly subdued and submitted to Chu Fengmian. You old fellows, I have already given you a chance. Since you are not willing to obediently submit, your lives will end here today. Chapter 379. The killing intent in Chu Fengmian's words was not concealed at all. His killing intent had already been aroused. Chu Fengmian would only give people one chance. Since they were not prepared to submit, Chu Fengmian would not show them any mercy. You want to kill us? Brat, do you really think that our Qin Empire's imperial clan can stand for 1,000 years without any trump cards? The Qin Mang Saint looked at Chu Fengmian and coldly snorted. This old man admits that your strength is even more terrifying than transcending unparalleled. You're indeed an exceptional genius rarely seen in 1,000 years. However, you're too arrogant. Your arrogance will cause you to die today. The Qin Mang Saint said furiously. Let's attack together and awaken the Earth Vein's power. Today, even if we have to stake everything, we must kill him. All right. The 5 Peak Saints suddenly attacked and awakened the Earth Vein's power. Waves of Earth Vein's power buffed the 5 of them. These 5 people all possessed the bloodline of the royal clan, and could awaken the Earth Veins beneath the Qin Empire. Now, with the support of the Earth Veins, with the Earth Veins power buffed, their strength was not inferior to the Qin Emperor's at his peak. Arrogant Junior. Prepare to die. Feeling the sharp increase in their strength, the 5 Peak Saints attacked at the same time. Waves of spiritual energy burst out, and the surrounding space was on the verge of shattering. The strength of these 5 people was already infinitely close to the life and death realm. In a short while, they would probably attract the attention of the heavenly tribulation and trigger it. Overlord of heaven and earth. Old ancestor Wang Feng took the lead and attacked. His tyrannical aura erupted without restraint. What he cultivated was the supreme tyrannical Tao. With the Earth Vein's power buffing him, his confidence increased greatly. His tyrannical power immediately manifested. In his eyes, it was as if he was an overlord of a region. When the overlord of heaven and earth's move was unleashed, the entire space seemed to submit. Its might was peerless and terrifying to the extreme. It was almost on par with the tribulation lightning unleashed by the Qin Emperor. With the Earth Vein's support, these people possessed an existence similar to a small divine vein. Although it was far from being as miraculous as the divine vein, which had endless spiritual energy, it was still able to support the power of the Earth Vein. With a single move, the power of the Earth Vein would be several times stronger than usual. This was the power of a pinnacle saint after being supported by the power of the ley line. This move was enough to make many pinnacle saints unable to withstand it. Zhao Wudi was apprehensive of the Qin Empire's royal family's Earth Vein power. Before entering the life and death realm, he didn't dare to find trouble with the royal family. Progenitor Wang Feng's attack was meant to kill Chu Fengmian with a single blow. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes had already seen through Patriarch Wang Feng's move. He also struck out with his palm, and the power of his palm was actually on par with Patriarch Wang Feng's. Both Chu Fengmian and Patriarch Wang Feng took a step back. Patriarch Wang Feng smiled smugly. As expected, no matter how strong this brat is, he's still within the realm of the divine force realm. Right now, the Earth Vein force we're using is already not that far off from his strength. Right now, let's attack together and suppress him, killing him. Patriarch Wang Feng laughed. The remaining 4 pinnacle saints also attacked at the same time. All of a sudden, the entire palace was filled with countless martial skills. Each and every move was directed at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could only defend himself, unable to counterattack. It was as if he was completely suppressed. Kid, you've tasted the feeling of being suppressed. Today, you'll die. Elder Xiao roared madly. He had a belly full of anger, and now, he was finally able to release it. In an instant, he unleashed dozens of martial techniques at the same time. With the support of the ley line's power, the spiritual energy he consumed was only a fraction of the usual. Therefore, he didn't need to worry about running out of spiritual energy. Countless martial skills were hurtling toward Chu Fengmian. When the saints saw that Chu Fengmian was suppressed, they were all excited and attacked at the same time. If they unleashed their power individually, they wouldn't even be able to hurt Chu Fengmian. But now that Chu Fengmian was suppressed, there would be a loophole in Chu Fengmian's defense. Their martial techniques were all extremely lethal. Adding insult to injury. Beating a drowning dog. These saints all wanted to kill Chu Fengmian so that they could have a share of the treasure when Chu Fengmian had a fortuitous encounter. Chu Fengmian had been trying his best to resist the countless martial techniques. It seemed that he was losing, but his spiritual consciousness was always paying attention to every movement around him. Suddenly, a huge tribulation cloud appeared above the imperial city. This tribulation cloud was 2 to 3 times bigger than Emperor Jianwang's tribulation cloud. The life and death tribulation of the 5 pinnacle saints had finally arrived. Now that they had unleashed their full strength, they had finally triggered the life and death tribulation. This was also what Chu Fengmian had been waiting for. Chu Fengmian revealed a smile as he looked at the 5 of them and said calmly, "The life and death tribulation has appeared. So what? Kid, today, even if the 5 of us risk our lives, we will still kill you." Saint Ancestor Xiao looked at Chu Fengmian and said disapprovingly. There was even a hint of mockery in his tone. He thought that Chu Fengmian was using the life and death tribulation as a life-saving straw. The arrival of the life and death tribulation was not something that could happen overnight. He was confident that he could completely kill Chu Fengmian within this period of time. Kid, don't think that the appearance of the life and death tribulation will save you. Today, you will definitely die. Don't think that we can't kill you. You are now a lamp that has run out of oil. If we join forces again, you will definitely die. Great Ancestor Qin Mang's extremely angry voice sounded. For Chu Fengmian, they had triggered the life and death tribulation. Today, they must drag Chu Fengmian down with them. Is that so? My lamp has run out of oil? Hearing Great Ancestor Qin Mang's words, Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly revealed a hint of a smile. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's body, which had little spiritual energy left, was filled up. He had recovered to his best state. Chu Fengmian had divine meridians, so he had never worried about the problem of running out of spiritual energy. Just now, he had deliberately suppressed most of his spiritual energy and created a state of a lamp that had run out of oil. It was to lure the 5 pinnacle saints to attack with their full strength and trigger the life and death tribulation. The lives of these 5 people were not important to Chu Fengmian. What he cared about was the life and death tribulation. It should be said that it was the power of fortune at the core of the tribulation cloud. Chapter 380. Now that Chu Fengmian had tasted the sweetness of the great Emperor Jianwang's life and death calamity, he must obtain the fortune energy of the great Emperor Jianwang's life and death calamity. What Chu Fengmian had done just now was just a disguise. Now, it was time to end the disguise. What's going on? How did this person's spiritual energy recover? Saint Ancestor Xiao looked at the spiritual energy bursting out from Chu Fengmian's body and was stunned. He said in disbelief. Chu Fengmian's previous state was like a lamp that was about to run out of energy and had no strength to resist. If this continued, Chu Fengmian would be defeated very soon. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength had suddenly increased by 10 times, 20 times, and his spiritual energy had completely recovered. How could he believe this? Ancestor Xia, don't be fooled by him. This is just the final radiance of the setting sun. He's just putting up a strong front. Let's attack together and kill him. Old Ancestor Qin Mang said coldly. There's a great opportunity on this person. Let's kill him and obtain all of his treasures. We can pass the life and death calamity together and successfully enter the life and death realm. That's right. The 5 of us will enter the life and death realm together. At that time, the surrounding 5 countries will not be our opponents. Xiao Wudi will also die. We will unify all the countries. We will achieve supreme hegemony. Old ancestor Wang Feng also shouted excitedly. Attack together, kill. One after another, earth-shattering martial techniques were launched. The 5 great Emperor Qin Huang's figures attacked together. The whole palace was instantly filled with lightning and thunder, and countless spiritual energies exploded. The other saints also attacked one after another, wanting to kill Chu Fengmian once and for all. Martial techniques were launched at the same time. Under such martial techniques, even a life and death realm expert might not be able to escape unscathed. Boom! One after another, the martial techniques even shattered the space, turning the surroundings into a void. The whole palace was shaking, and it was completely broken in an instant. Countless martial techniques had turned into an inescapable net. Even if he wanted to escape, there was no way for him to do so. Die. Chu Fengmian only spat out a single word. His figure moved and his feet moved. Suddenly, he appeared in the inescapable net formed by countless martial skills. A boulder slowly appeared in his hand, which expanded rapidly and fired at the martial skills. Bang! As soon as the rich lush steel was purified, boundless spiritual power exploded out, instantly destroying the countless martial skills. At the same time, Chu Fengmian looked at the 5 pinnacle saints. You're all worthless now. Since you've drawn out a life and death calamity, you can all die now. Chu Fengmian said coldly. He had waited so that the 5 of them would draw out the calamity. Now that the calamity had appeared, there was no need for the 5 of them to continue existing. Chu Fengmian had already given them a chance to submit. Unfortunately, they didn't know how to cherish this chance to live. You're relying on the power of the earth vein. Very well, I'll first extract all the power of the earth vein. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly as his mind moved. Divine Pulse. Extract. Chu Fengmian pushed the power of the Divine Pulse to the limit. The power of the earth vein around them was instantly sucked dry. For a moment, the power of the 5 pinnacle saints was falling rapidly. The power of the earth vein in their bodies was completely extracted by Chu Fengmian's Divine Pulse. What? Impossible. How can this person control the power of the earth vein? The 5 pinnacle saints' faces changed drastically. The power of the earth vein was the greatest trump card of the Qin Empire's royal family. No matter how powerful the Almighty was, they couldn't use the power of the earth vein. They had been scheming since 1,000 years ago. Only now could they use a little bit of the power of the earth vein. But now, the power of the earth vein was easily taken away by Chu Fengmian. Their greatest trump card had been neutralized by Chu Fengmian so easily. Chu Fengmian didn't explain. He took a step forward and unsheathed the sword in his hand, slashing forward. As soon as the sword was drawn, it was capable of destroying all life. The sword's edge expanded and endless blood qi surrounded it. Sword Art of Slaughter. As the sword slashed out, endless blood qi was compressed into 3 feet. The blood qi was frighteningly deep and scarlet. It contained unfathomable power. Destroy. The sword slashed toward Saint Ancestor Xia. Among the 5, he had the worst mouth. Now, the first person Chu Fengmian wanted to kill was him. Saint Ancestor Xia's only reliance, the ancient formation of 9 demons, had been taken away by Chu Fengmian. Facing Chu Fengmian's sword, his face changed and he turned to run. Such an invincible pinnacle saint chose to run away when facing Chu Fengmian's sword. His escape light was fast. He spat out a lot of blood and activated the blood escape force. He escaped into the depths of the void, trying to avoid Chu Fengmian's sword. In front of this Chu, no one can escape. Chu Fengmian looked at Saint Ancestor Xia coldly and sneered. The 3-foot sword light also escaped into the void and chased after him. Ah! In an instant, Saint Ancestor Xia let out a blood-curdling scream. Boundless blood qi burst out from the depths of the void, smashing his body into pieces. Chu Fengmian devoured the blood qi and integrated it into his sword Art of Slaughter. The blood qi of a pinnacle saint was very useful to his sword Art of Slaughter. Damn it! Let's fight it out with him. The other four looked at each other and burned all their essence blood. They could see that they couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian even if they wanted to. Now, they might as well make a final counterattack and make a last stand. The spiritual power of the four was completely condensed. In the sky, it turned into a shocking punch and blasted toward Chu Fengmian. Every spiritual power in this punch was profound and unpredictable. They had used the purest martial skills in their lives to condense this terrifying punch. They were going to fight it out with Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely calm. He did not care about it in the slightest. With a thought, the 1,296 drops of Ancient Era's War Dragon blood essence in his body were activated. They condensed into a War Dragon claw and slapped it forward. This shocking punch was instantly shattered, and countless amounts of spiritual energy were scattered. Chapter 381. Chu Fengmian had mercilessly broken the final struggle of the four peak saints. Whoosh! Chu Fengmian's figure moved. He had no intention of letting the four go. Even a lion had to use its full strength to hunt a rabbit, let alone these four peak saints. If any of them comprehended something at this critical moment, it would be troublesome for Chu Fengmian. He made a prompt decision and rushed to the front of the four. With a wave of his hand, Ancestor Wang Feng and Ancestor Qin Mang were grabbed by Chu Fengmian. As Chu Fengmian squeezed, the bodies of the two peak saints began to shatter bit by bit. They were instantly killed without any chance of resurrection. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's eyes looked at the last two people, Chief Reverend Gufan and Ancestor Jinsu. Young Master Chu, we were wrong. Please be magnanimous and spare us this time. We are willing to serve you for the rest of our lives as your slaves and work for you. Gufan immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. His fighting spirit had disappeared without a trace when Ancestor Qin Mang and Ancestor Wang Feng were crushed to death by Chu Fengmian's bare hands. Now, he was filled with fear. He didn't want to die. As a peak saint who was only a step away from the life and death realm, he didn't want to die. With the Purple Sun True Fire, he might have a chance to step into the life and death realm. However, if he was killed by Chu Fengmian today, everything he had would be gone. You don't want to die? Chu Fengmian sneered at Gufan and snorted. Unfortunately, I once gave you a chance. Since you weren't willing to serve me back then, there's no chance for you to serve me now. Die! Chu Fengmian pressed his hand down, ignoring Gufan's request. Gufan obviously wouldn't truly serve him. Although he could use the All-Heaven Death Seal to make Gufan serve him, Chu Fengmian had said that there was only one chance. Not everyone was qualified to serve Chu Fengmian. At the very least, Gufan wasn't qualified to serve Chu Fengmian. His blood qi was also directly devoured and absorbed by Chu Fengmian into his Sword of Massacre. Chu Fengmian felt that his slaughter sword principle was about to improve after devouring four pinnacle saints. As long as Chu Fengmian's slaughter swordsmanship could take another step forward, he would be able to summon the primordial slaughter god in one fell swoop. The last person is you. After killing Chief Consecrator Gufan, Chu Fengmian looked at the last person, Ancestor Jinsu. Die! Not giving old Ancestor Jinsu any chance, Chu Fengmian pressed down with his hand. Old Ancestor Jinsu's body was directly shattered, killed by Chu Fengmian. The five peak saints had all died at Chu Fengmian's hands. Countless saints felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this. This was especially true for them. Earlier, they had tried to surround and kill Chu Fengmian. It was clear that each and every one of them was filled with fear, and their bodies were shivering. All of you, kneel down now. Open your minds and become my slaves, and submit to me. Chu Fengmian glanced at the saints and said coldly. Countless saints looked at each other, and half of them knelt down. They had completely lost the courage to go against Chu Fengmian. However, more than half of them stood where they were, unwilling to kneel down. Saints were considered to be the overlords of a region. Now that they had to kneel down and become slaves, it was even more humiliating than killing them. Chu Fengmian, we are the higher-ups of the Qin Empire. If you kill us, you can forget about ruling the entire Qin Empire. A saint suddenly mustered up his courage and shouted. If you want us to submit to you, we can. But if you want us to open our minds and become your slaves, that is absolutely impossible. That's right. Without us, the Qin Empire will not be able to operate. When the other 5 empires attack, the Qin Empire will still be destroyed. We can submit to you, but we will never become your slaves. Another martial saint said. The saints who were standing seemed to have gained a lot of courage as they spoke one after another. That's right. We are all saints. We can't be your slaves. I don't believe that he can really kill all of us. When the time comes, all he will get is an empty Qin kingdom. These saints were all powerful officials. In the past, even the Qin Empire did not dare to kill them. Once they were killed, the entire Qin Empire would fall into chaos. Unfortunately, the more the saints shouted, the colder Chu Fengmian's expression became. Chu Fengmian was not even afraid of the threat of the 7 sects. Why would he be afraid of these ants? All right. Since you are not willing to submit to me, you can all die. Chu Fengmian did not hesitate. He waved his hand and attacked. The spiritual energy turned into a huge whip. As the whip lashed out, the few saints who spoke first were instantly killed. They turned into clouds of blood mist and were devoured by Chu Fengmian. Ah! Ah! With each scream, a saint would be killed by the whip. The remaining saints who were still standing were pale. They knelt down and begged for Chu Fengmian's forgiveness. Unfortunately, Chu Fengmian did not intend to spare them. You want to submit to me now? It's too late. Chu Fengmian glanced around. He waved his hand and caught all the saints who wanted to resist. With a press of his hand, their bodies were crushed. They were all killed by Chu Fengmian. Only 1/3 of the saints who were present were left. These people knelt on the ground and did not dare to raise their heads. They were secretly glad that they did not try to use their power to pressure Chu Fengmian. Now they could survive. Destruction Legion. Qin Empire's army. Gather in the Imperial City. Chu Fengmian sent a message to the Destruction Legion in Qin Empire's army with his spiritual consciousness. Countless experts came to the palace and knelt before Chu Fengmian. Chief Commander. Ao Jianyuan and Swordslayer King stood up and respectfully waited for Chu Fengmian's order. Swordslayer King was originally a counselor in Qin Empire's army. Later, under Chu Fengmian's guidance on swordsmanship, his strength skyrocketed. Now, he had reached the peak of 7th Divine Power Realm and vaguely became the commander of Qin Empire's army. He was the one who led Qin Empire's army. Ao Jianyuan, lead the Destruction Legion and suppress all the forces who are causing trouble in Qin Empire's country. If anyone dares to cause trouble, kill them all and kill all their relatives. Leave no one alive. Chapter 382. Said Chu Fengmian, glaring at Ao Jianyuan. His words were filled with ruthlessness. Chu Fengmian had killed so many saints. These saints were all powerful officials. Now that they were dead, the Qin Empire would be in chaos. He wanted to see who would dare to resist Chu Fengmian. Whoever dared to resist Chu Fengmian would only end up dead. It was time for the Qin Empire to have a complete change of dynasty. Yes. Ao Jianyuan lowered his head and said respectfully. He looked at Chu Fengmian with eyes full of admiration. The Qin Empire was an ancient country that had existed for thousands of years. Even Zhao Wudi couldn't do it, but Chu Fengmian had done it. Ao Jianyuan had completely submitted to Chu Fengmian. He was extremely excited. Chu Fengmian's words were absolute in his eyes. He led countless experts of the Destruction Legion and walked out to carry out Chu Fengmian's order. In the imperial city, many people had started to become restless. Suddenly, countless sounds of killing could be heard. Those who dared to resist Chu Fengmian were all killed. As for the Sword Slayer King, go and investigate Family Zhao's power in the Qin Empire. It's time to take action against Family Zhao. Chu Fengmian said in a deep voice. The Zhao family was deeply rooted within the Qin Emperor country. Right now, Chu Fengmian wanted to spread the power of the Zhao family out of the Qin Emperor country and unify the Qin Emperor country. Yes, young master. The Sword Slayer King said respectfully. Then, he led countless experts of the Qin Empire army and left. The Sword Slayer King's strength had increased greatly after Chu Fengmian's guidance. Now, in his heart, Chu Fengmian was the supreme master. Now that he heard Chu Fengmian's order, he left immediately to investigate Family Zhao's power. Now, only Princess Tianyin and Chu Fengmian were left in the palace. Tianyin, the throne of the Qin Empire will be inherited by you. Chu Fengmian looked at Princess Tianyin and said slowly. Chu Fengmian didn't want to inherit the throne of the Qin Empire. He was dealing with the royal family of the Qin Empire because they had schemed against him. Right now, the best candidate for the throne was Princess Tianyin. What? I will inherit the throne? Princess Tianyin was stunned after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. She didn't expect that Chu Fengmian would ask her to inherit the throne. That's right. You are the most suitable candidate, said Chu Fengmian's words. Tianyin, you. Me? Chu Fengmian's. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Princess Tianyin was delighted. The throne to inherit the throne. The throne was the throne, the throne, the throne. Should be her. 2. The throne to the throne, the throne, to the throne, to the throne to be Fengmian. The throne Fengmido had. Chu to the throne to inherit to be a. To give it, was to be. 2. Princess Tianyin looked outside and was deeply worried. The life and death calamity had already enveloped the entire desolate city. Although the 5 peak saints had fallen, the life and death calamity hadn't disappeared. It had gathered enough power and was about to descend. Once the calamity of life and death descended, the entire imperial city of the Qin Empire would be destroyed. She would also die, let alone obtain the throne. Don't worry. I will take care of it. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He took a look outside and walked out. His face was as calm as ever. Even the life and death calamity didn't make Chu Fengmian's face change. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed and arrived at the imperial city in an instant. The countless experts present were all looking at the life and death calamity in the sky worriedly. Now that Chu Fengmian had appeared, they all breathed a sigh of relief. To them, Chu Fengmian was invincible. Now that Chu Fengmian had appeared, their faces calmed down. The life and death calamity is a few times stronger than Qin emperors. The corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a hint of a smile. The stronger the power of this life and death tribulation, the stronger the power of creation within. Looking up at the tribulation clouds in the sky, Chu Fengmian suddenly moved. Chu Fengmian's figure rushed into the life and death tribulation in an instant. Ao Jianwang, Lord Sword Slayer and the others were astonished by this scene. Chu Fengmian had unexpectedly rushed into this terrifying life and death calamity. To the two of them, the life and death realm was no longer far away. The life and death calamity was deeply ingrained in their hearts. Countless peak saints didn't dare to take action. But now, Chu Fengmian had charged directly into the great calamity of life and death. What is the great commander doing? Ao Jianwang muttered to himself, feeling extremely puzzled. But in the next second, he understood after seeing Chu Fengmian's action. Chu Fengmian's figure rushed into the great tribulation of life and death, and immediately unleashed all of his strength. 1,296 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence burst out with spiritual energy. The Emperor Jar appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. Ancient Human Emperor. Enlighten all. The power of the Human Emperor Jar was instantly unleashed and exploded. This power was frightening to the extreme. It was as though one would die if one were to come into contact with it. The life and death tribulation in the sky had just finished gathering its power. Before the tribulation lightning could strike, it was torn apart by the power of the Emperor's jar in an instant. Calamity destruction. What Chu Fengmian wanted to do now was to destroy the power of the mortal Emperor jar was fully unleashed. In an instant, it tore apart the great calamity. Calamity destruction. This was a life and death calamity. Dark clouds were pressing down on the city, making it hard for people to breathe. Countless experts present were terrified to the extreme. But now, Chu Fengmian had destroyed this great calamity with just a casual move. Just one move. Countless experts present couldn't believe their eyes when they saw this scene. They looked at Chu Fengmian with incomparable shock in their eyes. This was a real expert, a real invincible figure. He didn't care about the life and death calamity. He destroyed the life and death calamity with one move. At the same time, Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion with his hand. A sparkling and translucent jade bead was pulled out. It was the core of the life and death calamity, the fortune jade bead. Chu Fengmian moved his palm and turned the fortune jade bead into pure spiritual energy. Then, he swallowed the spiritual energy into his body. Chapter 383. This jade bead of fate was much more powerful than the one that had destroyed Emperor Qin Shi Huang's life and death tribulation. Chu Fengmian felt as if his body was about to explode when he devoured it. This time, the power of fate was extremely ferocious. It started to churn within Chu Fengmian's body. As expected, it's not an easy task to completely control the power of creation. Chu Fengmian sighed. The power of fate was the most mysterious power in the world. It was indeed not easy to control. This was also within Chu Fengmian's expectations. After all, if the power of fate was so easy to control, there would be more than a few people in the entire 9 regions who could truly control it. Although the power of fate was extremely powerful, it was not easy to tame. This ball of power of fate started to condense within Chu Fengmian's body. It was actually resisting Chu Fengmian's devouring. Even if it's the power of fate, it must be tamed and devoured. The might of the ancient war dragon. Erupt. Suppress. Chu Fengmian roared. Suddenly, all of his power erupted. In an instant, he frantically suppressed the power of fate. Chu Fengmian was the person who would unify the 9 regions in the future. This power of fate would also be under his control. Suppress. 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 Chu Fengmian condensed waves of spiritual power and frantically suppressed the power of fate. The power of fate was suppressed within Chu Fengmian's body. At the same time, Chu Fengmian was also secretly communicating with the power of fate. Suddenly, his mind jolted. The power of fate was condensed together and started to take shape. The power of fate was condensed by Chu Fengmian into the shape of a sword. A sword embryo. What Chu Fengmian wanted to do now was to condense the power of fate into a sword embryo. A sword embryo was a necessary item for every sword cultivator. According to legend, the origin of a sword cultivator came from the power of a sword embryo. The purer and stronger the power condensed from a sword embryo, the more it represented the achievement of the sword embryo. Sword cultivators who had reached the wind-controlling realm already had the ability to condense a sword embryo. However, most sword cultivators would only condense a sword embryo when their strength reached a bottleneck. This way, the sword embryo that was condensed would have greater talent. Chu Fengmian was the same. However, after seeing the power of creation, Chu Fengmian made a prompt decision and decided to condense it on the sword embryo. Chu Fengmian could no longer suppress the power of creation. Using strength to suppress it would be exhausting. It would be better to condense it into a sword embryo and use it as Chu Fengmian's power. The power of creation was the most powerful force in the world. It was extremely pure. Using the power of creation to condense the sword embryo was much more useful than any other force in the world. Sword embryo. Condense. Although Chu Fengmian's understanding of swordsmanship was extremely high in his previous life, this was his first time condensing a sword embryo. He was extremely nervous. He slowly gathered all of the creation force and formed it into the shape of a sword. Suddenly, he moved his hand and all of the creation force gathered together and started to solidify. Suddenly, a small sword that was only 3 inches long formed in Chu Fengmian's body. This was the sword embryo that Chu Fengmian had condensed. Although the sword embryo had just been condensed, Chu Fengmian could feel that the power of the sword embryo was much stronger than the glow formed by the power of creation on his divine pulse. After condensing the sword embryo, Chu Fengmian could be considered to have perfected his swordsmanship and become a true sword cultivator. Young master's strength seems to have increased again. This power. Could it be that young master has condensed the sword embryo? The sword slayer king looked at Chu Fengmian from below and muttered to himself. As a sword cultivator, he naturally knew about the sword embryo. His strength had not reached the bottleneck, so he did not prepare to condense it. However, he also knew that after condensing the sword embryo, his strength as a sword cultivator could still improve further. Now that Chu Fengmian had changed, he immediately understood. Looking at Chu Fengmian descending slowly, he went up to him and said, "Congratulations, young master, on condensing the sword embryo. Sword Slayer King, have you investigated family Zhao's matter?" Chu Fengmian looked at the Sword Slayer King and asked. Now that he had condensed the sword embryo with the power of creation, his strength had increased again. It was time for him to make a move. "Young master, it's clear," the Sword Slayer King replied respectfully. Now in the Qin Empire, other than family Zhao, the Jin family is the closest to him. Our army can deal with the other forces easily. However, family Zhao and the Jin family are not easy to deal with. The Jin family also has a peak saint ancestor. Our army is no match for him. The Jin family was one of the ancient families in the Qin Empire. The Jin family's ancestor was also a peak saint. No matter how strong the Qin Empire's army was, they stood no chance against the peak saint. So what if he is a peak saint? Let's go. Bring some men and destroy the Jin family first. Chu Fengmian's face was calm. He waved his hand and brought the Sword Slayer King to the Jin family. The Jin family was located in the southwest of the Qin Empire. They were also an overlord. Especially the Jin family, they were the wealthiest family in the Qin Empire. Without the support of the Jin family, family Zhao would not have been able to develop to such an extent. Destroying the Jin family was equivalent to cutting off one of Zhao Wudi's arms. "Young master, the Jin family is in the Jinxian ancient city." The two of them stepped through the space and arrived in front of an incomparably huge city. The city was covered in countless forbidding auras and giant formations. In the air, there seemed to be an eggshell-like canopy that covered the entire Jinyuan ancient city. This was the supreme formation that the Jin family had set up. This formation was enough to defend against an army. It was also the capital that the Jin family had to contend against the royal family. "Young master, the canopy of the Jinxian ancient city is difficult to deal with," the Sword Slayer King reminded in a low voice. "Even the great Prince Slayer could not break this canopy. I am not confident that I can break it now." The countless seals and formations in the Jinyuan ancient city were much more powerful than those in the Shou ancient city. Even the Sword Slayer King could not break it. Especially the canopy that covered the entire Jinyuan ancient city. If one could not break it, one would not be able to enter. This canopy is nothing special. It's just a combination of 99 formations. Chu Fengmian said casually. Chu Fengmian saw through all the mysteries of the sky screen at a glance. The formations of this era were much weaker than those of 10,000 years ago. Moreover, the people who set up the formations were not as strong as Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could sneak in an instant. However, Chu Fengmian did not want to go through so much trouble. Since he was here to subdue the Jin family, he would just destroy the canopy. Chapter 384. Welcome to my golden mystic ancient city. Rumble. A gap opened up in the sky that covered the entire golden mystic ancient city. Two figures flew out from it and spoke slowly. Chu Fengmian and the Sword Slayer King did not conceal themselves when they came to the golden mystic ancient city. The saints of the Jin family in the golden mystic ancient city naturally noticed them immediately. He directly revealed himself and glanced at the Sword Slayer King with a strange expression between his brows. Sword Slayer King, your cultivation level has increased so quickly. You have already reached the peak of the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm? One of the Jin family saints looked at the Sword Slayer King and said in surprise. The Sword Slayer King was considered a veteran saint in the Qin Empire. His strength had always been around the 5th level of the Divine Power Realm and had not broken through for a long time. This Jin family saint had obviously seen the Sword Slayer King before. Now that he saw the Sword Slayer King's strength, he was extremely shocked. The Divine Power Realm was not that easy to break through. The 7th level of the Divine Power Realm was already considered an expert among the saints. Jin Su, do you think that everyone is as useless as you, spending a fortune to buy a pile of rare items but unable to break through? The Sword Slayer King looked at the Jin family saint Jin Su and said without restraint. At the same time, he whispered to Chu Fengmian. This Jin Su is one of the supreme elders of the Jin family. We have some grudges in the past. He borrowed the power of the Jin family to snatch many rare items from me. Is that so? Since you have a grudge with Jin Su, then his life is in your hands. Chu Fengmian heard the Sword Slayer King's words and said casually. Anyway, the life of such a saint was not important to Chu Fengmian. Since the Sword Slayer King had a grudge with him, then Chu Fengmian would give Jin Su's life to the Sword Slayer King. What? Sword Slayer King, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you have a breakthrough. This is the golden mystic ancient city. Do you believe that I will activate the power of the Sky Curtain to kill you now? Jin Su heard the Sword Slayer King's words and his face turned cold. He looked at the Sword Slayer King with disdain. So what if he was a martial artist at the 7th level of the Divine Power Realm? As long as he activated the Sky Curtain of the golden mystic ancient city, killing the Sword Slayer King. Oh? You want to threaten me with this Sky Curtain that's full of holes? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but say. His words were full of ridicule. In his opinion, the sky screen was simply a broken object. However, Jin Su treated it as a treasure and wanted to use it to threaten him. Kid, who are you? How dare you point fingers here? A brat who isn't even a saint dares to join our conversation. Die! Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Jin Su was infuriated. Since the Sword Slayer monarch had mocked him, he didn't dare to act rashly. After all, the Sword Slayer Emperor was also a member of the Qin Shi Huang army and a true saint. But now, looking at Chu Fengmian, he found that he was just a warrior at the peak of the wind-controlling realm, even an ant-like figure. Now that he heard Chu Fengmian speak, his belly full of anger was directly unleashed on Chu Fengmian. Die! Jin Su took action and grabbed with his big hand. Suddenly, a storm flashed across the entire horizon, turning into thunderclouds and rumbling. Endless gales engulfed Chu Fengmian's body and surrounded him, as if they wanted to tear his body apart. Seeing Jin Su taking action against Chu Fengmian, the Sword Slayer monarch stood aside and didn't move at all. He revealed a cold smile on his face. Since they dared to take action against Chu Fengmian, the Sword Slayer monarch was clear about Chu Fengmian's means. It seemed like these two people were tired of living today. Jin Su, don't go too far. He's just a reckless junior. Just teach him a lesson and cripple his cultivation. If you kill him, you won't be able to explain it to the imperial family. Another Jin clan grand elder standing beside Jin Su slowly opened his mouth and said. His voice sounded like he was pleading for mercy, but in fact, it was a disdainful insult. Crippling one's cultivation was more humiliating than killing him. It was simply a provocation. Kill me? Cripple this Chu's cultivation? These two ant-like fellows are really arrogant. Before the supreme elder of the Jin family could finish his words, Chu Fengmian's mocking voice suddenly rang out from the storm. The countless storms in the surroundings suddenly shattered. At the same time, an incomparably huge arm directly grabbed at Jin Su. What? Jin Su still didn't know what was going on. He only saw the incomparably huge arm suddenly grabbing at him. He used all the strength in his body and crazily attacked, trying to resist the incomparably huge arm. However, no matter how many martial skills he used, he couldn't move it at all. At the same time, even if he tried to escape, he couldn't escape from the incomparably huge arm. Chu Fengmian's palm moved slightly and Jin Su was directly grabbed by Chu Fengmian. Jin Su was pinched in Chu Fengmian's hand, unable to resist at all. "Brat, who are you?" The Supreme Elder of the Jin family's face suddenly changed when he saw Jin Su being suppressed so easily. Although Jin Su's strength wasn't too strong, he was still at the 5th level of the Divine Power realm. In the Qin Empire, he was considered an expert with some fame. Now, he was actually suppressed by Chu Fengmian, a wind-resisting realm warrior. It was simply beyond his understanding. It was impossible for such a shocking existence to appear out of nowhere. "Kingslayer, Qin Shi Huang Army. You're the new great commander of the Qin Shi Huang Army?" Looking at Kingslayer's attitude and then looking at Chu Fengmian, the Supreme Elder of the Jin family suddenly understood who Chu Fengmian was. In the past, the Qin Shi Huang army was subdued by a wind-resisting realm warrior and became the great commander. In the eyes of the Jin family, it was originally a joke. However, looking at Chu Fengmian now, they finally understood who Chu Fengmian was. "Kingslayer. You brought this person here. Are you looking for trouble with our Jin family? Even the royal family of the Qin Empire doesn't dare to find trouble with our Jin family. Your Qin Shi Huang army is too daring." The Supreme Elder of the Jin family shouted angrily. "The two of you, quickly retreat. Compensate our Jin family with countless rare items and today's matter will be considered over. Otherwise, the two of you won't be able to leave here alive today." Compensate? Do you think that your Jin family still has the possibility of surviving today? Chu Fengmian's eyes moved and he snorted coldly. "Since the two of you are colluding with Zhao Wudi, then the two of you are traitors today. Killing the two of you is also eliminating a great disaster for the Qin Empire. Take a leave today. Only one chapter. We'll make up for it in the future. Today is a little special. No choice. We'll make up for it in the future." Chapter 385. Kingslayer, Jin Su's life is in your hands. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and suppressed Jin Su, then threw him to Kingslayer. "Yes." The Sword Slayer King sneered. He had a grudge against Jin Su and had long wanted to kill him. He grabbed Jin Su and moved the sword in his hand, preparing to slash down. "Kingslayer, how dare you!" The Jin family's Supreme Elder shouted angrily when he saw Kingslayer's action. "Do you really want to shed all pretenses with our Jin family? Shed all pretenses? I'm not even afraid of family Zhao, why would I be afraid of your Jin family's lackey? Get your ass over here." Chu Fengmian looked at the Supreme Elder of the Jin family and coldly snorted. He directly attacked and grabbed towards the Supreme Elder of the Jin family. He wanted to capture the Supreme Elder of the Jin family as well. At the same time, Kingslayer did not hesitate. The sword in his hand slashed down and Jin Su died in the hands of Kingslayer. As the sword fell, Jin Su, one of the Jin family's Supreme Elders, was killed. "Damn it. Seems like your royal family is crazy. Today, we've shed all pretenses. Great, then the two of you can forget about leaving here alive. Sky screen power. Kill them." The Jin family's Supreme Elder was really angry. He looked at Chu Fengmian and Kingslayer's actions. They actually killed Jin Su, a Supreme Elder of the Jin family, outside the Golden Mystic Ancient City. They simply did not put the Jin family in their eyes. It was absolutely intolerable. Suddenly, countless spiritual energy surged and the power of the sky screen was activated. Endless spiritual energy burst out and turned into countless long spears, shooting towards Chu Fengmian and Kingslayer. The number of spears seemed to be endless, and the strength of each spear wasn't any weaker than the full-powered attack of a saint at the 5th or 6th level of the divine force realm. Especially the number, it was terrifying to the extreme. There were almost 1 million or 10 million of them. They were so densely packed that it was impossible to dodge. No matter how powerful a saint was, it was impossible for him to withstand the combined attacks of 1 million or 10 million saints. The sky screen was the biggest trump card of the Jin family. Relying on the sky screen, the Jin family had killed many powerful enemies. Now, with the activation of the sky screen by the supreme elder of the Jin family, Chu Fengmian and the Sword Slayer King would be killed instantly. There are many powers, but they are too noisy and impure. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly when he saw the countless spears flying towards him. He stood still and activated the power of the ancient battle dragon's blood essence. It turned into dragon scale spiritual energy and blocked his front. The spiritual spears formed by the sky canopy attacks were unable to move the dragon scales at all. The biggest trump card of the Jin family was that it couldn't even hurt a hair of Chu Fengmian's. Break! Chu Fengmian moved his feet. With a thought, 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon's blood essence were condensed at the same time and turned into the battle dragon claw. Suddenly, it fell from the sky and attacked. The spiritual spears were all shattered by the battle dragon claw. At the same time, the incomparably huge battle dragon claw hit the sky canopy directly. Little bastard! You're courting death. Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, the supreme elder of the Jin family laughed instead of being shocked. I can't fully activate the power of the sky canopy, but you dare to provoke the sky canopy. Then, you'll be killed by the power of the sky canopy. The entire sky canopy was bombarded by the power of Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw. Suddenly, endless spiritual energy fluctuations erupted crazily. All the formations under the sky canopy were activated and the power of the sky canopy was pushed to the extreme. It turned into an incomparably huge spiritual energy and attacked the battle dragon claw that Chu Fengmian had condensed. Young lord, be careful. The Sword Slayer King, who was standing at the side, could not help but feel nervous. The Jin family was one of the oldest families in the Qin Empire. Although they were not as strong as family Zhao in terms of martial arts, they had the wealth of a country. The sky canopy was created by the Jin family's endless wealth. Endless wealth was used to set up the formation to form the sky canopy. The power of the sky canopy was enough to contend with a true peak saint. Nowadays, someone is really impatient and dares to challenge the power of the sky canopy. A few Jin family saints appeared one after another. They sensed the eruption of the sky canopy's power and came one after another. Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, they sneered. No one who dared to challenge the sky canopy had ever survived. The Jin family could contend with the imperial family because they relied on the undefeated sky canopy. Is that so? Just a formation that is riddled with holes like this is enough to make you so confident? Well then, I'll destroy the sky canopy first. Let's see what else you can rely on. Chu Fengmian sighed and strode out. The spiritual force in his body was unleashed as streams of spiritual force were applied to the battle dragon claw. Shatter. The battle dragon's claw was activated once again, as streams of spiritual force were added to it, before it struck down once again. Bang! The power condensed by the sky canopy was crushed and shattered by the battle dragon claw. At the same time, the battle dragon claw grabbed at the sky canopy's body. Boom! An incomparably loud explosion rang out, and a huge hole was smashed in the sky. The Jin family's invincible barrier, the sky canopy, had been shattered by Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw, creating a huge gap. Impossible! The faces of all the Jin family saints changed abruptly and their eyes were filled with disbelief. The sky canopy, the Jin family's invincible barrier, had been shattered just like that. How could this be possible? Old man, weren't you arrogant? You want to use the sky canopy's power to kill me? Unfortunately, even the sky canopy can't withstand a single blow. Chu Fengmian looked at the Jin family great elder with extremely cold eyes. After the battle dragon claw blasted open the sky, it changed direction and clawed at the supreme elder of the Jin family. The Jin family great elder saw the battle dragon claw coming at him and wanted to escape, but under the battle dragon claw, there was no way for him to escape. He was caught in the battle dragon claw. Let go of Jin Yun. The Jin family saints saw the Jin family great elder in Chu Fengmian's hand and attacked one after another. Endless martial techniques bombarded Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, a total of 7 Jin family saints attacked at the same time. 7 forces merged into one. It was obviously a joint attack that the 7 Jin family saints had cultivated. The 7 of them attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. They wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and save Jin Yun. The first update of the day continues. Chapter 386. The 7 saints joined forces and unleashed a boundless amount of spiritual energy. It almost turned into a long river, and within the long river, a supreme golden body was formed. Golden body of prison suppression. As soon as the supreme golden body appeared, the 7 saints activated their spiritual power at the same time and bombarded Chu Fengmian. The strength of this golden body wasn't any weaker than a true peak saint. Moreover, without the threat of life and death, it could use its full strength. It was even more terrifying than a peak saint. Suppress. The golden body attacked and threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. The punch contained boundless suppressive force, as if it wanted to suppress Chu Fengmian forever like a demon. Chu Fengmian glanced at the 7 saints and looked extremely calm. With a move of his palm, Jin Yun was crushed. Chu Fengmian had crushed such a saint of the Jin family as easily as crushing an ant. 7 good-for-nothings. So what if you've learned the joint attack technique? Break for me. Glancing at the golden body, Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. With a wave of his hand, a burst of spiritual power burst out. Although Chu Fengmian had only casually moved his hand, the power contained within it was extremely frightening. In an instant, the golden body began to shatter bit by bit. The endless suppressive force within it was easily broken by Chu Fengmian. At the same time, Chu Fengmian grabbed the golden body with his big hand. With a sudden force, countless cracks appeared on the golden body and it began to shatter. Impossible! The 7 saints from the Jin family widened their eyes when they saw Chu Fengmian shatter the golden body with a squeeze of his hand. The power of the golden body was the power of a real peak saint. The joint attack technique of the Jin family was well known. Such a golden body was comparable to a peak saint. Even if it was not Chu Fengmian's opponent, in their opinion, it was enough to contend with Chu Fengmian. However, no one would have thought that such a golden body comparable to a peak saint would be so easily crushed by Chu Fengmian. The 7 of them combined could even temporarily contend with Zhao Wudi. But now, in front of Chu Fengmian, it was so weak that it couldn't even withstand a single blow. Just how terrifying was his strength to be able to break the golden body. Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely calm after casually breaking the golden body. He looked at the 7 Jin family saints and sneered. The people of your Jin family are all traitors and traitors. Everyone is proud of killing you. Today, even if I kill all of you, I will let countless people see the fate of traitors. As Chu Fengmian spoke, endless spiritual energy blasted out, intending to kill all 7 Jin family saints. Ancestor, save me. Ancestor. The 7 saints of the Jin family were all pale with fright. They were all peerless saints and important figures. However, in front of Chu Fengmian, they were like ants in front of a giant beast. They were shivering. They simply didn't have the courage to contend against Chu Fengmian. They couldn't help but shout loudly. So what if you're a junior? How dare you make an enemy of my Jin clan? A loud explosion took place all of a sudden, as an ancient yet powerful aura burst out from the golden arcane ancient city. A figure appeared from the golden mysterious ancient city. It turned into a ray of light and flew over. The ancestor of the Jin family, the pinnacle saint who had been hiding, finally appeared. The ancestor has awakened. Great! The ancestor has awakened. This kid is dead for sure. When the Jin family saints heard the voice, it was as if they were grasping at the last straw of hope. They all spoke one after another. The ancestor of the Jin family was also an invincible figure among the pinnacle saints. Like the Qin Emperor and Zhao Wudi, he was a figure who had reached the life and death realm. He was only one step away from passing the life and death tribulation. His appearance calmed the hearts of countless Jin family saints. Oh? The ancestor of the Jin family is not weak. He is a bit stronger than the few old guys in the royal family of the Qin Empire. However, he is not as strong as the Qin Emperor. Chu Fengmian scanned with his spiritual sense. He could see the strength of the ancestor of the Jin family at a glance. The ancestor of the Jin family indeed had the potential to reach the life and death realm. However, he was not as strong as the Qin Emperor. The Qin Emperor had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. He did not need to care about a mere ancestor of the Jin family. Junior. Our Jin family has no intention to make an enemy of your royal family. Retreat now and apologize to our Jin family. Offer us countless treasures, and we can let today's matter go. An ancient voice seemed to come from the sky. It was the ancestor of the Jin family who had spoken. You dare to go against our Jin family? Even the few old fogies of the royal family do not dare. Now, you, a junior, have the audacity to provoke our Jin family. You have already committed a great sin. You should know. The ancestor of the Jin family spoke. His tone was arrogant, as if he was teaching a junior a lesson. For what happened today, even the royal family of the Qin Empire will not be able to protect you. Right now, kneel down and apologize. That is your best choice. Ancestor of the Jin family? Where did this old guy come from? His cultivation base is not high, but his tone is not small. You want me to apologize? Not to mention your Jin family, even family Zhao, Biming Academy, and the 7 great sects are not worthy. Who do you think you are? Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. He looked at the sky and suddenly stretched out his hand. Don't play tricks here. Get out here. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and broke through countless dimensions. A white-haired old man was suddenly pulled out from behind the countless dimensions by Chu Fengmian. This white-haired old man was the ancestor of the Jin family. What? You can see through my concealment technique? The ancestor of the Jin family revealed an astonished expression after being pulled out by Chu Fengmian from behind countless spaces. The Jin family's concealment technique was also well known. The Jin family's ancestors' concealment technique was said to be unbreakable in the saint realm. The ancestor of the Jin family was known as the ethereal saint. His cultivation method was ethereal to the extreme and unpredictable. But now, Chu Fengmian had directly pulled him out from behind countless spaces in a single move. His concealment technique was actually useless in front of Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? The ancestor's figure is unpredictable. Even powerful saints could not detect it. Even the great emperor of Qin Shi Huang could not find it. How could this kid find it? It must be luck. This person's luck is pretty good. He found the ancestor's figure by accident. Chapter 387. No one believed that Chu Fengmian could find the great ancestor of the Jin family. The ancestor of the Jin family was strong enough to compete with Emperor Qin. They did not believe that Chu Fengmian had the ability to compete with him. Junior, you're too arrogant. Although you're strong, you're not invincible in this world. If you choose to surrender to the Jin family and become our slave, I can spare your life. The ancestor of the Jin family was suddenly captured by Chu Fengmian, but his expression was still cold and arrogant, as if he did not take Chu Fengmian seriously. He was the ancestor of the Jin family, an almost invincible figure in the Qin Empire. No one in the Saint Realm could defeat him. Even Zhao Wudi could only be on equal footing with him. In his eyes, Chu Fengmian was a junior, so he naturally did not take him seriously. Even if Chu Fengmian hit him, the ancestor of the Jin family was not afraid at all. Surrender? Today is the day of the Jin family's destruction. Do you still want me to surrender? Chu Fengmian sneered. And you, old man, you're just an ant in my eyes. Today, I'll kill you first, and then destroy the Jin family. What an arrogant junior. Kill me? Let me see if you have the ability. The ancestor of the Jin family was furious. He was an invincible figure at the peak of the Saint Realm, but Chu Fengmian called him an ant, which made him extremely angry. In his anger, he no longer cared about the threat of death and burst out with all his strength. River of gold and black. Endless spiritual power burst out from the ancestor of the Jin family, and suddenly turned into a huge river. The river was full of golden spiritual power, and it suddenly rushed toward Chu Fengmian. Almost at every moment, the golden spiritual power was washing Chu Fengmian's body, and it was about to shatter his body. The erosion of the golden spiritual power was enough to completely destroy a solid spiritual weapon. However, when the golden spiritual energy hit Chu Fengmian's body, it only produced clinking sounds. Chu Fengmian's body was actually much harder than a spiritual weapon. The power of the battle dragon art was activated, making Chu Fengmian's body look like a humanoid ancient battle dragon. Not only was the golden spiritual energy unable to cause any harm to Chu Fengmian's body, it was even able to refine Chu Fengmian's body. Damn it! How could this person's body be so tough? My power was unable to destroy his physical body. Instead, it strengthened his physical body and made it even more solid. The old ancestor of the Jin family couldn't help but angrily say in his heart. Chu Fengmian's body was so tough that it didn't seem like a human body at all. However, kid, no matter how strong your physical body is, it's meaningless. With a wave of his hand, a book appeared in the palm of the Jin family's ancestor. With a wave of his hand, an endless amount of pressure erupted from the book. This golden mysterious ancient book hasn't been used for hundreds of years. Kid, kneel down and surrender now. You're the only hope. Kneel and submit, or die. Kid, make your choice. The old ancestor of the Jin family sneered. The golden mysterious ancient book was a top-grade Earth-level spiritual weapon. He originally planned to use it as a trump card to survive the life and death crisis. Now, in order to deal with Chu Fengmian, he used all of his trump cards. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian had any capital to contend with him. Old man, you're the one who should kneel down. Golden mysterious ancient book? Break it for me. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. Suddenly, with a thought, the battle dragon claw condensed in his hand. He directly slapped the golden mysterious ancient book. The battle dragon claw slapped on the golden mysterious ancient book. Suddenly, countless cracks appeared on the golden mysterious ancient book. This top-grade Earth-level spiritual weapon was actually shattered by Chu Fengmian's hand. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's figure moved. He grabbed the throat of the old ancestor of the Jin family and threw him to the ground. Boom! With a loud sound, the old ancestor of the Jin family was directly grabbed by the neck by Chu Fengmian and thrown to the ground like a chick. This was simply unbelievable to the extreme. The Jin family saints opened their eyes wide and did not speak for a long time. They simply didn't know what to say. The invincible figure of the Jin family, a peak saint, was actually so vulnerable in the hands of Chu Fengmian? You still dare to stand up? Chu Fengmian's eyes moved. He looked at the old ancestor of the Jin family who was thrown to the ground by Chu Fengmian and slowly stood up. He raised his eyebrows and his endless dragon power suddenly pressed down. Kneel for me. Little bastard. Don't even think about, puff. Because of this boundless humiliation, the old ancestor of the Jin family turned blood red. He urged the spiritual power of his whole body to resist. However, under Chu Fengmian's endless dragon power, any resistance was useless. Under the pressure of the dragon power, the old ancestor of the Jin family's knees went soft and he immediately knelt on the ground. This kneeling was simply like shocking the heavens and earth and making ghosts and gods weep, causing the entire golden mystic ancient city to seethe with excitement. The old ancestor of the Jin family has actually been subdued. What kind of power does this person have? How can he be so powerful? Could this person be a life and death expert? But his realm is only wind-controlling realm. What's going on here? This person said that he would exterminate the Jin family today. It seems like he wasn't boasting. Even the old ancestor of the Jin family is not his opponent. Who in the entire Jin family could be his opponent? Terrifying. Too terrifying. We must submit. We can't be enemies with this person. Countless experts in the golden mysterious ancient city looked at this scene and discussed spiritedly. The one who felt the most humiliated in this discussion was the old ancestor of the Jin family. An ancestor-like figure like him was now forcefully suppressed and forced to kneel on the ground for everyone to see. This kind of humiliation was even more painful than killing him. Old man, I'll let you live for now. I'll let you see with your own eyes how your Jin family is going to be destroyed. This is your fate for relying on Zhao Wudi. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and shouted at the nearby Sword Slayer King. Sword Slayer King, take people to the golden mysterious ancient city and kill all the disciples of the Jin family. Kill everyone with the Jin family's bloodline. Leave no one alive. Yes. Sword Slayer King replied. Immediately, countless experts of the Qin Shi Huang army appeared from the surrounding space and poured into the golden mysterious ancient city. For a moment, countless sounds of battle resounded in the golden mysterious ancient city. Countless experts of the Jin family were killed. The entire Jin family was completely destroyed. Chapter 388. Old man, what else do you want to say? Chu Fengmian looked at the ancestor of the Jin family and snorted coldly. Kid, don't be arrogant. Today, you'll be buried with me. You'll die too. The ancestor of the Jin family roared crazily. Endless thunderclouds erupted in the sky. His strength was pushed to the limit. For a moment, the great tribulation of life and death had been summoned. Under the great tribulation of life and death, you'll die too. Kid, so what if our Jin family is annihilated? You'll die too. The ancestor of the Jin family laughed crazily. He was completely crazy now. He would rather die with Chu Fengmian as a scapegoat. However, when he saw the great tribulation of life and death, Chu Fengmian's face was not angry. Instead, he smiled. He didn't kill the ancestor of the Jin family because he was waiting for the great tribulation of life and death. His sword embryo had just been formed. It needed more fortune energy to grow. The great tribulation of life and death represented the fortune energy for Chu Fengmian. The great tribulation of life and death that everyone feared was the source of his strength in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Since the great tribulation of life and death has been summoned, you have no reason to live. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancestor of the Jin family and suddenly killed him with a palm strike. At the same time, Chu Fengmian rushed into the tribulation cloud and pinched it with his bare hands. The tribulation cloud had not been completely condensed. It was completely dispersed by Chu Fengmian's palm strike. The fortune jade bead was easily obtained, devoured and refined by Chu Fengmian into his body. The sword embryo in the depths of Chu Fengmian's body devoured the fortune energy. Chu Fengmian felt that the power of his sword embryo had become stronger because of the fortune jade bead. What's going on? Chu Fengmian had finished refining the fortune jade bead. Before he could feel the power, his face suddenly changed. Chu Fengmian felt that the jade talisman he had left for Hanueli was broken. This also meant that Hanueli was now in danger. Although the strength of the jade talisman that Chu Fengmian left was not very strong, a saint below the fifth divine power realm couldn't break it. When did such a person appear in victorious Wu country? Let's go. Without any hesitation, Chu Fengmian disappeared from where he was, shuttling through the endless void. On the other side, In the cold snow pavilion of Wuxing Nation, the great formation of the cold snow pavilion had been activated. Currently, countless disciples in the cold snow pavilion were extremely nervous. The primordial dragon turtle stood at the side with a pale face. His chest had been torn open, revealing a large amount of flesh and blood. It was obvious that he was severely injured. Several saints stood outside the cold snow pavilion. They were all saints from the other 3 sects and the Martial Victory Academy. They were like stars surrounding the moon, trying to curry favor with a young man who was standing in the middle. Don't be angry, Sacred Envoy. This little Hanshua pavilion is stubborn and stubborn. They are determined to resist. We will be able to break this formation soon. An old man fawned over the young man. This old man was the headmaster of Wuxing Academy, Lei Che. Currently, he had a fawning expression on his face as he spoke in a fawning manner in front of this young man. Although Chu Fengmian, who has the Northern Mang Saint token, isn't in our victorious Wu country, he will definitely return obediently if we capture his woman. How dare someone in such a small country go against the prestige of our Northern Mang Academy? What a joke! The young man snorted coldly. Humph, I was ordered to come to this small country to investigate the bottom of the Northern Mang Saint token. Our Northern Mang Saint token has been obtained by some trash. This is simply a disgrace to our Northern Mang Academy. A small force in a small country dares to go against our Northern Mang Academy? They are simply overestimating themselves. Beside the young man, a follower spoke. Young master, this girl is not bad. She actually has a profound cold body. If you enjoy her and suck out all the Xiantian Qi from her body, your strength will increase by another step. Profound cold body? When the young man heard his follower's words, he looked towards the freezing snow pavilion and saw Hanyu Li. His eyes were filled with greed. That's right, it's the profound cold body. This small country actually has such a Xiantian body. It's a good harvest. If I drain her Xiantian force, my cultivation will improve further. When the great array is broken, you guys capture this woman and bring her here. The young man sneered. Sacred Envoy, this woman is Chu Fengmian's woman. If you capture her, you can force Chu Fengmian out and enjoy her. Lei Che suddenly spoke from the side. He was filled with resentment towards Chu Fengmian. Now that he heard the young man's words, he took the initiative to speak. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if that brat runs away. Oh? This brat knows how to take care of women. He actually didn't drain her Xiantian force. It's a pity that he has to leave it for me to enjoy. The young man's eyes were filled with lust. Alright, then we'll force that brat out and enjoy her after we get the Northern Mang Saint badge. There's nothing to play in this broken country. This woman not only has a Xiantian body, but she's also very pretty. It's a good time to play with her and kill some time. Is that so? I'd like to see if you have the luck to do so. An angry roar suddenly descended from the sky. The space above the sky suddenly shattered and a figure walked out from it. It was Chu Fengmian. His words were filled with anger. As soon as Chu Fengmian arrived, he heard that the young man was trying to take advantage of Hanyu Li. Hanyu Li was Chu Fengmian's woman. This young man dared to take advantage of her. It was simply touching Chu Fengmian's reverse scale. Sacred Envoy, he's Chu Fengmian. Lei Che pointed at Chu Fengmian and shouted when he saw Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly appear. Quickly capture him. Don't give him a chance to escape. A peak wind resistance realm ant? You, go and capture him. The young man glanced at Chu Fengmian with disdain in his eyes and said to the follower beside him. Yes. The follower walked out and his spiritual energy surged. He was also a saint and was at the 6th level of the divine force realm. With such strength, he could do whatever he wanted in the victorious martial country. He took a step forward and looked at Chu Fengmian in the sky. He waved his hand and was about to grab Chu Fengmian and capture him. Chapter 389. Kid, I'm Yang Yu, an inner disciple of Beimang Academy. Before you die, you must remember this lord's name, lest you become a headless corpse without knowing why." Yang Yu looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed loudly. Although he was just a follower in front of the young man, he was an invincible figure in victorious Wu country. Any disciple of Beimang Academy had a higher status than the emperor of victorious Wu country. Yang Yu's attack was like a group of mountains, bombarding Chu Fengmian with the power of mountains. Although he was only at the 6th level of the divine power realm, the power he unleashed when he attacked was enough to fight against someone at the 8th level of the divine power realm. His strength was 2 levels higher than Chu Fengmian's. The disciples of Beimang Academy are indeed geniuses among geniuses. A mere follower of an inner disciple can fight across 2 levels. Chu Fengmian thought to himself when he saw Yang Yu's attack. With such aptitude, he could be considered a top genius in Qin Empire. However, he could only be considered average in Beimang Academy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been reduced to a follower. What a strong power! So this is a disciple of Beimang Academy? Lei Che and the saints of the other 3 sects were shocked when they saw Yang Yu's attack. In the divine power realm, one could be considered a genius among geniuses if he could fight across 2 levels. Yet, a random disciple of Beimang Academy had such a terrifying aptitude. Yang Yu attacked. The power of the mountains continued to bombard Chu Fengmian. It was like an endless mountain range. It was so endless that no one had time to catch their breath. This martial technique was extremely overbearing. Even a saint at the peak of the 9th level of the divine power realm would be suppressed, unable to fight back. His attack was clearly meant to kill Chu Fengmian completely, not giving him any chance to escape. However, even if he was a genius, he was like an ant before Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian snorted and waved his hand, casually striking a palm at Yang Yu. Although this palm seemed to be a lot easier, when the 2 forces collided, Yang Yu's spiritual energy was scattered and he was forced to retreat. What? How could there be such a person in such a rundown country? Yang Yu couldn't help but reveal some shock on his face after being forced back by a single move. Chu Fengmian's realm was only at the peak of the wind-resisting realm, yet he actually had enough strength to contend against him. This was inconceivable to the extreme. However, even if your strength is not bad, you still can't contend against us. Strength of 1,000 caddies. Yang Yu was forced to retreat after his first attack, and he immediately launched another attack. There was a hint of anger on his face as he used his full strength. He was a disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, but now he was forced to retreat by a wind-resisting realm warrior. This was simply humiliating to the extreme. The power of this attack was even stronger than before. The scope of this attack was already close to the 9th level of the divine force realm. This move was like an incomparably huge mountain that wanted to completely suppress Chu Fengmian and crush him into pieces. Scram! Chu Fengmian shot a glance at Yang Yu and suddenly waved his hand. Under his full strength, an extremely powerful force erupted. Instantly, Yang Yu's boundless spiritual energy was completely shattered, and the palm slammed into Yang Yu's chest, sending him flying. Yang Yu's spiritual meridians were forcefully shattered by this palm strike. Yang Yu would definitely not be able to recover without a few years of effort. Even if he recovered, his realm would not be able to advance. This palm had almost destroyed Yang Yu's future. Impudent! Damn brat, how dare you injure our Northern Mang Academy's disciple? Today, you must give us an explanation. As our slave. You must serve us for life. Yes, suppress him. His aptitude is not bad. Engrave a seal on his body and make him our slave. The other 2 followers beside the young man shouted angrily when they saw Yang Yu being sent flying. 2 figures appeared at the same time. These 2 people's strength was not inferior to Yang Yu. In an instant, they were suppressing Chu Fengmian. This conflict was to suppress Chu Fengmian and make him their slave. These Northern Mang Academy's disciples were extremely arrogant and ruthless. In their eyes, unless they were from the Northern Mang Academy, anyone else was an ant and a slave. If they wanted to be a slave, they could be a slave. Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. He had been restraining himself and did not use his full strength because he did not want to have too big of a conflict with these Northern Mang Academy's disciples. However, these people were very aggressive. They wanted to seize the Northern Mang sacred tablet and capture Hanyu Li. Now, they even wanted to suppress Chu Fengmian and make him their slave. Chu Fengmian did not take the initiative to cause trouble, but he was not afraid of anything. He was not afraid of the 7 major sects, so he was not afraid of the Northern Mang Academy. Impudent? You guys from the Northern Mang Academy want to seize the Northern Mang sacred tablet and even have designs on my woman? Looks like you guys are out of control. Very well, all of you will die today. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and immediately circulated the spiritual energy in his body. Humph, an ant like you dares to rebel against our Northern Mang Academy? How dare you rebel against us? Disobeying our orders is a great sin. We will suppress you and make you a slave. This is what you deserve. A Northern Mang Academy's disciple shouted coldly. If you rebel now, you will be even more guilty. Not only you, but all of your friends and subordinates will be our slaves. The 2 Northern Mang Academy's disciples attacked at the same time. The 2 of them had actually learned a joint attack technique. The strength of the 2 burst out at the same time. In an instant, their strength was close to that of a peak saint. The 2 of them instantly appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. When they attacked together, they formed an incomparably huge seal. They wanted to completely suppress Chu Fengmian. Get lost. Chu Fengmian didn't even raise his head as he abruptly smashed his fist over. The incomparably huge restriction collapsed under Chu Fengmian's fist, instantly shattering into pieces. The aftermath of the attack sent the 2 Northern Mang Academy's disciples flying. They spat out countless mouthfuls of blood. The blood was the blood essence of a saint. The 2 of them fell to the ground and spat out blood continuously. Their cultivation realm had dropped by 2 levels. Chapter 390. A bunch of trash dares to show off in front of me? Chu Fengmian looked at the 2 Northern Mang Academy's disciples and directly walked over. He lifted his leg and stomped on one of their chests. The moment he lifted his leg. Stop! The young man coldly shouted. His tone was arrogant as if he was giving an order. Chu Fengmian glanced at the young man. His foot did not stop as he suddenly stomped on the chest of one of the Northern Mang Academy's disciples. Wah! A large amount of blood spurted out. His spiritual vein was crushed by Chu Fengmian's stomp, turning him from a saint to a trash without spiritual energy. This stomp was ruthless to the extreme. Despicable brat, this young master told you to stop. Can't you hear me? The young man looked at Chu Fengmian's actions and his face was filled with anger. His identity was incomparably noble in the Northern Mang Academy, but Chu Fengmian actually ignored his words. Looking at the Northern Mang Academy's disciple who was on the ground, spurting out blood and having his spiritual vein destroyed, the young man's expression became incomparably ferocious. Very well, it seems like you want to be our Northern Mang Academy's enemy. Don't think that you can intimidate us with your strength. In front of our Northern Mang Academy, you're just like an ant. If we want to crush you, we can do so at any time. The young man opened his mouth and said fiercely. Now, hand over the Northern Mang Sage Medallion and your woman. Open your mind and allow me to place a restrictive spell on you. Submit to me and become my slave. This is the only way out for you. Otherwise, you will die. Where did this trash come from? How dare you point your finger at me? Chu Fengmian did not have any good impression of the young man. It was the young man who wanted to take Hanyu Li. Originally, Chu Fengmian did not want to shed all pretenses of cordiality, but this young man was actually so aggressive. The Northern Mang Academy was not to be trifled with, and Chu Fengmian was not a kind person either. If he still had scruples after being bullied, then Chu Fengmian's cultivation would be useless. Looks like you're the one behind all this. Alright then, I'll subdue you first. Chu Fengmian sneered. With a wave of his hand, he charged towards the young man. Suddenly, an endless amount of spiritual energy transformed into a long river. This long river was filled with surging spiritual energy. It descended from the sky and suppressed the young man. "Subdue me? A lowly brat like you?" The young man looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. "It seems that you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. An ant from a small remote country dares to dream of competing with this young master? Fine, then today, this young master will let you understand the difference in strength." This young man abruptly acted. His cultivation base was at the 7th level of the divine force realm. However, the power he unleashed was at the level of a pinnacle saint. It was even more powerful than an ordinary pinnacle saint. It was a strength that had crossed 4 realms. Oh! To be able to surpass 4 realms in strength, he can be considered a genius. Chu Fengmian thought to himself when he saw the young man make his move. To be able to surpass 4 realms in strength, one could be considered a genius in the ancient times. It seemed that this young man did have some aptitude. Not bad, but he only had some aptitude. This kind of strength was not worth mentioning in front of Chu Fengmian. He was able to kill a pinnacle saint at the pinnacle of the wind-controlling realm. Compared to this young man, he was much more powerful. What? Are you afraid, brat? However, it's meaningless even if you're afraid. Now, you're finished even if you kneel down and beg for mercy. Today, you must die. Your woman. All of your subordinates will become my slaves. The young man saw that Chu Fengmian stood where he was and did not make a move. He thought that Chu Fengmian was afraid and became even more arrogant. He glanced at Han Yueli. The greed in his eyes was not concealed and he suddenly made a move. This move seemed to have integrated 5 secret techniques. These secret techniques were mixed together to form an extremely mysterious move. This move was blasted out. The mysteries of these 5 secret techniques were displayed incisively and vividly. Any one of these secret techniques was no less powerful than an Earth-class martial technique. How terrifying! This genius of the Beimang Academy is actually able to combine 5 secret techniques of the Earth-class martial technique to form a new martial technique. Countless people were shocked to the extreme when they saw this scene. It was not easy for a saint to familiarize himself with an Earth-class martial technique. It required a long period of tempering. Moreover, it was extremely difficult to master 5 secret techniques at the same time. As for that young man, he had not only grasped the 5 secret techniques, but he had also fused the 5 secret techniques together to create a new secret technique that contained the quintessence of the 5 secret techniques. This was simply shocking. Only a disciple of the Beimang Academy could have such terrifying aptitude. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, the young man could not help but smile proudly. He looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. "Brat, kneel down. Any resistance is meaningless. However, even if you kneel down now, you must die today." The young man's face was malevolent and his eyes revealed a hint of lust. "No, I will spare your life. Let me see how I enjoy your woman." This 5-will secret technique is a consummate technique comprehended by this lord. Let's see how you can block it. The 5 secret techniques were launched at the same time, forming an incomparably huge wheel. It was almost equivalent to 5 peak saints attacking at the same time. Spiritual energy trembled as it pressed down. Even an existence like Jianwang, who was only a step away from the life and death realm, would find it hard to block this 5-will secret technique. However, Chu Fengmian's face was incomparably relaxed. His strength had already surpassed the saint realm. As long as his opponent was not a true life and death realm expert, Chu Fengmian could easily defeat them. His strength had already surpassed the divine power realm. You dare to be so arrogant with such a crude move? You want to defeat me? Ridiculous. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. With a thought, the 1,296 drops of battle dragon essence blood erupted and condensed into a battle dragon claw. The claw of the battle dragon immediately descended from the sky and slapped at the 5 wheels of the secret technique. Rumble. In front of the war dragon's claw, these 5 secret techniques were shattered into pieces. The aftershock of the explosion caused the young man to continuously retreat. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.